C.J. Stroud down the seam, caught, touchdown, Julian Fleming.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Florida's first offensive play, Richardson faked the boot. He'll load it up and cut it loose with that big arm. Justin Shorter has the long gain on the first play. Touchdown, Gators.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Just a three-man rush all day for Young is directing traffic, extending, looking, pointing deep, and delivers a shot to the end zone. Touchdown, Joe Earl. And the magic of Bryce Young to wait for someone to get open and then throw a dart.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Rides the play action, has plenty of time to crank it up and go downfield and into the end zone for a touchdown to the freshman Dane Key. Will Levis, how about that?
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Tate Barber in motion. Duggan on the run, he scores!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And here we go on this Thursday afternoon, 365 Sports, Sicem 365 Radio, all in studio today. I'm David Smoak, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, here with us as we start the show today, and many things to get to, including just the term 42 points in the paint. We'll get to that in a minute, involving Baylor and their game with Kansas State this past weekend, earlier this week when they lost on Saturday at home on the Kansas's home court as well. Also, Alabama shaking off a lot of the distractions and winning a very difficult game in South Carolina, and their star player Miller, 41 points, including the game winner, as they win that game in overtime. We'll also hear from what Jim Harbaugh has to say about All-American running back Blake Corum, among other issues as well. I got some stats, guys, from a couple of different places that I've always kind of leaned on when it comes to rating services. We've heard from Auerhand and Marchand and Bob Thompson and others, and of course Bob yesterday was great. But at Sports TV Ratings, whenever I turn off auto renewal on anything, I think I'm probably in a tiny minority of people doing it. It's a much bigger minority than I would have ever guessed. And here's where the stats come in. This is from at Sports TV Ratings. And again, this is beyond what I kind of can comprehend in some ways, but I'm learning this. I'm learning it, and I'm trying to spend time on this. Apple TV Plus subscriptions aren't renewing at a staggering rate. UBS's survey found that only 51% of its users auto-renew, as compared to 64% Prime Video, 63% for Netflix, and 60% for Disney Plus. Is it because it's not as valuable? Is it because it's not loaded up with enough content? What would you think is the reason for that?
Well, I think that right now, and I have it as part of just my whole deal, but I mean, there's not a whole lot on it. Like there's good stuff on it. But it's not, there's Ted Lasso, there's a couple other things, and they've got, if you're a sports fan, they've got MLS, so there's not a whole hill of beans of stuff there with it. Now, if you're like an Apple TV, if that's your box, your delivery, the little Apple TV One or whatever it is that you can get, then it's probably worth it because that's where you get all your content from. But even then, there's not a whole lot on it yet. It's still fairly new.
All right, Craig, let me read this part and your thoughts on it as well. Apple TV Plus, this is from one who responded to that tweet. At $32 a month is completely worth it. The fitness app, Apple News, Apple Music, and a TV network with the highest ratio of hits at bats. Integration with all devices seamless. My phone is my TV remote, and Apple TV Plus is my home base for all of my streaming content.
I mean, good for that person, but everybody's different.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, that's one example of one of millions of people who watch TV. So for that person, Apple makes all the sense in the world, and they have, what they said, a $32 bundle. So, I mean, I don't even know what that is. I guess that's like you have everything that's Apple, music and all of that, because I don't have a $32 bundle and I have Apple TV. I have, like, whatever the bare minimum is. And I don't even know really why I have that. I think at this point I only have Apple TV because it was free because of, like, a deal when I got my phone. I got, like, several months of it. But besides that, why don't people auto-renew it? Because it's just not, like, must-have for me. I don't have a service just because it's the same brand as my phone and my laptop. That doesn't mean it's worth watching just because it's Apple-related, in my opinion. I think Netflix, which isn't as great as it used to be, still has better offerings. I think Hulu and Disney Plus is potentially, depending on what you watch, a better offering than what Apple has. I don't watch Ted Lasso, so okay, there's a big strike against them. I tried to watch the show C, and I lost interest after about a season. And I don't even really know what else is on there because I don't really ever think or care to really scour around and look all that much because it's just not top of mind for me because it's back of the line, really. So for that person, it works really well and integrates well. It integrates with my laptop and my phone and all of that really well, but there's just not really anything on there that makes me want to watch it, quite frankly. The only reason I even really have Apple TV besides the free trial is because I can watch my iTunes library rather easily through that. And I have a bunch of movies that I bought over the years on the cheap. And so if there's nothing else on TV or I just want to watch a movie, then I could just flip on Apple TV and there's my entire library. That's the basic reason why I have it. Not any original TV show that they have, not anything movie-wise. And now that I think about it, the only reason I even dabbled with Apple TV to begin with, even as an Apple customer, was that Tom Hanks Greyhound movie. If it wasn't for that, I don't know if I ever even would have gotten it, quite frankly. Yeah, I don't know. Now that I think about it, that was entirely the reason I got it to begin with. And I watched that a couple times, and then I don't remember really watching much else after that. So, yeah, I mean, it's different for everybody. It's not an exact science.
Well, and again, is there a possibility there are people might have some of these streaming subscriptions and don't even know it?
That's their whole business model, Smokey, is to get you to sign up and then you forget. Look, I've canceled 4 or 5 things over the last couple of years that, in what will happen is, like my payment will change out.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I'll get an email saying like, hey, we can't charge your card. And I'm like, for what? And it was because 3 years ago I signed up for this thing. I don't use it anymore, and it's there. That's what auto renew's purpose is that to keep you going and not realizing it. It's why, there are several subscriptions I have. As soon as I pay the bill on the special, that I have a little 365-day alert that please make sure you turn off auto renew and then wait another week and go back in for the special. So I get the deal every time. I'm not paying full price. But yeah, there's tons of things. I search through it all the time and find stuff that I've paid for an extra 6 months that I didn't even realize I'm not using anymore. I needed it for this short amount of time. It's over, and I don't need to have the account anymore. Look, I'll tell you, Discovery Plus was like that. I did. When Amanda moved in, she wanted to watch a couple shows on Discovery Plus, so I signed up for the $4.99 a month introductory offer. She finished the show she was watching on it. I totally forgot about it, and then one day I was like, the year changed, my card changed. It said, we can't charge your card. I was like, well, good news for me.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of pissed that I probably paid $80 of something I watched, not even me, like she watched for 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, I get it, and I've even talked to you, and we're bringing this up because there's so many moving parts now with the college football television deals and media deals and whatever might happen with the Pac-12. By the way, Dick Harmon from Deseret News out of Salt Lake City will join us today at 3:30, and his thoughts about what's happening around the Pac-12 and its future, or some of the stories that have come out this week. So we'll have him today at 3:30. But yeah, I started to finally, and it's I watch when they come through. But it may be $12 here. But I started to I cut back Netflix. I got it back because of Full Swing. My cable bill just started getting to the point where it was like, my God. And it was like over $300 a month, and I cut it back the other day and then cut it back again. And then I saw my next month come in, and it was down to like $212, $217. It was $232. I mean, they have these sneaky little ways of just constantly.
That still sounds really high to me for some reason.
Well, I have a really, really good spot of internet, and I have.
It must be the internet.
I have two DVRs, right? 2 DVRs, and I have. I don't know. I mean, it is high, and that's why I said, listen, I just don't need that. It's not a cost-cutting thing with me as much as I don't know where all this stuff's coming from.
And the other thing that they do, like, here's the thing. Auto-renew is one, and two, if you're with certain companies, the customer service is so terrible. Like, I need to change my plan with DirecTV, but waiting on hold for that long I've got to do it before baseball season starts so I don't get charged for all this stuff I'm not going to watch this year. But I haven't had the patience or the time. It's like, the estimated wait time is 48 minutes. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do for that time? Just sit here? Not go on with my life. So, and I think that's intentional because they're like, all right, well, I guess I'm going to get the Pirates again this year. And even though I don't care.
I mean, let's cut to the chase here. The reason why you're talking about this is because of the Pac-12.
Yeah,
so,
that's what I said,
basically what are you asking is, like, are people going to be all for, purchasing Apple TV and having that amongst their other options that they have? And how much do you want to pile onto that? I think I said yesterday or the day before, a lot of it will depend on what the offerings are, what kind of offer it is. But if they expect me to pay full price for Apple just to watch Pac-12 once a week on Friday nights, I don't know that I'll do that. Part of it because I don't usually get to be home on Friday nights, so catch the second half of a game and pay what? I mean, what are you saying? Am I paying $5? Then okay, I'll probably do it. If you're paying $14, no, I'm not, because I'm going to watch probably all of an hour of a game a month, and I don't care to really watch anything else on there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's the danger of running with just a streaming only is, for some people, it won't matter what the cost is. Some people are just going to be Pac-12 fans, and it doesn't matter what else is on there. And then some people like me, it's like, okay, what's the price cost? And yeah, it might only be a $10 difference, but it's the difference of me spending $50 over the fall versus not spending it. And yeah, I mean, I could probably, burn $50 and not really notice it all that much. But do I want to do that if I don't have to support a product that I'm not even watching? No, probably not. So yeah, I mean, that's something that Pac-12 diehards, it seems like a simple decision because you're going to want to watch the Pac no matter what. But outside of that, I mean, and again, what are the offerings? Are you giving me USC at all? Or am I just getting purely, the game that's kicked to the back of the line that is this a game of the week really, truly? Is Oregon on there versus Utah at all? Like, what kind of matchups are we talking about? Because, yeah, I mean, you're going to have to entice me with something other than just, hey, this is Pac-12 college football. I'm going to need more than that and a cheap price tag to dive into that and really make an investment.
It took me a while before I sunk in on ESPN Plus, and there have been some broadcasts that to me have not been very good at all. The technical part of it or the audio or both, and that could be it. And, hell, we have our issues at times with the buffering, and we're in the middle of going through a lot of different phases to change that. It's part of when you rely on technology, but I have watched. I mean, the other day there was a hell of a game on ESPN Plus, and it wasn't Baylor; it was somebody else in the Big 12. So I sunk into that, and I really, the Netflix. As soon as I watch that series, unless there's something else that pops up, I'll cancel that and move on. But I think there's so many things coming at us in different directions. But that is why I brought up again the streaming part of it and Apple TV Plus because of the story that Dick Harmon's going to discuss with us at 3:30 about who leaked that. Who leaked that story? Who leaked Apple TV Plus to, and there's his quote, the Pac-12 commissioner has to feel like a piñata getting spun and hit from all sides based on who leaked the story to Andrew Marchand. Or did Andrew Marchand, who's an incredible writer, business reporter, he himself just found it, went with it, had the due diligence, and also put it up earlier in the week.
Yeah, we have $5 super chat from Jason W. Paul, with all the well-sourced stories about Pac-12 not getting $40 million in revenue and now less than the Big 12, why do you still think there will be no Pac-12 movement? I just don't think that every condition is right for it right now. I think that there are a lot of factors in that. I think that right now they're in a position where not enough teams have another place to go, so they can stick together long enough to make that work. And if there was a second conference other than the Big 12 in play here to absorb them, then I would think that this would be very tenuous. And maybe it is, maybe it's not. But I don't get the feeling from the Big 10, what they've been doing lately, that is. I also think that if they wanted Washington and Oregon, they could have just taken them when they took USC and UCLA. I don't think that was all part of it. They went and got the ratings cow from the Pac-12. They got it. They got USC. That's what they wanted. They got UCLA, which takes the market completely out from under the Pac-12. So the Pac-12 now, I mean, yeah, they might get less than the Big 12, but it's still better than the next down will be, and they got to do something. It's going to be a short-term deal. Now, I do think that this could be the first wave of that, and then 5 years from now we could see a total catastrophe when it comes to that. But I just don't think that every condition is right now for that to happen, because there's enough schools that don't have a place to go, or there's at least a couple that I would just assume don't want to come to the Big 12. One is Colorado because they left it the first time, and the second is Utah because they don't really want to be in the league with BYU, and both of them wouldn't do that unless the conditions were forcing them to.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to happen just because I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense right now. That's just the simple answer from me. There's not enough of a money difference based on what we know right now to make it worthwhile to jump time zones and make traveling more difficult and spread yourself out a lot thinner than you have been accustomed to, just simply for, let's say, $5 million more a year. I mean, what are you really gaining from that? I mean, how much more stability, how much more visibility are you gaining? Because, the Big 12's got its TV slots, but if you suddenly add 4 more teams in there, then guess what? Everybody's going to be on TV a little bit less, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's only – if you have 12 teams right now, there's the TV spots you occupy. If you add 2 to 4 more teams, that's more games, but the slots are the exact same. Mm-hmm. So that's just more ESPN Plus games.
No,
that's
more
not more
streaming games.
That's not more ABC games. That's not more ESPN primetime games because you have more teams. That's just more teams that are now on ESPN Plus or whatever. So, with the TV deal they have it currently constructed and the money that we know the Big 12 is going to be getting, with the thought being, and unless the thought's just wildly inaccurate, but with the thought being that there's not going to be too much of a difference. I know there's the Pac-12, folks who at least, over the last few months at some point in time thought the Pac-12 is still going to end up with a better deal overall, like per year money. Okay, let's say that doesn't. Let's say that happens, and congratulations, everybody owes them an apology for having like $500,000 more per year if that's the way that it works out. But if they do end up with less, okay, how much less are we talking? Is it $2, $3 to $5 million less? Well, I think that's offset by your extra travel cost, and all of a sudden you're traveling to UCF on a Wednesday night to play basketball from Eugene, Oregon. Like, that just doesn't to make $2.5 million more. Like, I just don't know that that's worth all of the effort and the stress that comes with that. So it would have to be a noticeable difference to me to make sense to want to move. Like, double-digit millions of dollars.
That's why USC and UCLA can move, and all because
they're making tons more money.
They're making tons more money.
I do believe that, and I had somebody tell me this. That's pretty much entrenched in a lot of this stuff in the movement of how much would it cost if the Pac-12 teams ended up in another conference. And again, I don't think it's going to happen either. I don't think they're going to dissolve at least this particular wave. But on average, is going to be about $800,000 per school.
So that's not worth it. That's not worth it to go. Like, just throw away your history and your regionality and what you do have to work with for a few $100,000. Like, that's peanuts in the grand scheme of things.
If you're going to get an extra $5 to $8 million and you have to pay $800,000 for it, I'm talking about it. If the new deal comes out and they're going to get $5 or $6 million less, if they were to join the Big 12, and again, we don't know if anyone wants to, but they would cost them on average about $1 million per program in travel cost. And then you have, like you said, you have to offset the plus and negative from what you get compared to if you just stay where you are?
So it would have to be a drastically different deal, and there's no indication that it's going to be like $10 million less. So, again, that's why it's important to know, what is their freaking TV deal going to be? Mm-hmm. Where is this thing? Like, it's another – and I know they're not on like a shot clock in that we are owed their TV deal, but, like, until they actually show what this is going to look like, it's all just speculation. And so all these questions really not all of them, but a lot of them, as far as the Pac-12 and its future and all that, depends on what this TV deal looks like. Because if it's about the same as the Big 12, then there's a lot of hand-wringing over nothing, because there's no real motivation to go anywhere, knowing that in about 5 years we're going to do all of this all over again anyways. So I think what really the wild card that was thrown into this was the Kevin Warren departure. He was the one that was greasing the gears over further expansion and really had everybody in a tizzy because of kind of the cutthroat way he executed the LA move. And then the teasing of, well, we might not be done yet, or we're always open, and all that. And so that automatically led to the Oregon-Washington speculation, which then had a little sprinkling of Cal at one point and Stanford at one point. And how high are they going to go? Oh, my God, they're going to go to 32 teams. They're going to scoop the AC, all of that stuff. And then Kevin Warren leaves, and then it turns out, well, the Big Ten didn't really want to do all this much anyways, so they're standing pat. So that changed the equation. So, the other part of this is, if you're the Big 12, if you feel like they're on thin ice in the next few years, I mean, why? Like, if you're these schools, and this is probably going to happen anyways, if you're the Big 12, wouldn't you rather have Oregon, Washington before you'd rather have the four corner schools to begin with? Mm-hmm. And so that's part of it too. Like, what's their situation? Because they're the bigger TV draws.
With all due respect,
but much rather have Oregon and Washington than another combination of the other schools. All due respect, but yeah, that's the main reason why. It's just the money difference doesn't make sense to have all of that movement. But we'll see what that TV deal looks like, because maybe that is enough of a difference.
Grand Dan, a $5 super chat. Thank you again. We've had a couple of those off the top. We appreciate that. Everything contributes to what we do. The amount of you who like, the subscriptions, all of that, the amount of energy we try to put out every single day for you, and also for the college football fans. But we have other topics. But Grand Dan, without the Pac-12, that's if there is no Pac-12, and again, I believe there will be one. Without the Pac-12, and there is one, what schools would be the best options for the Big 12 in the Mountain Time Zone?
See, that's where I think this gets a little murky, because I don't think right now, and I think it's maybe been proven out by
four, right?
What?
And then some of them share West Coast time. Right? Utah?
But he said without the Pac-12 schools, right? Isn't that the question?
No, without the Pac. Okay. I thought he was talking about if there was no Pac-12. I think he's talking about elsewhere outside of the Pac-12.
Yeah, without those schools. I mean, Boise State, I think, is a school that can be on a UCF-like track with the goals they have for their athletic department. The difference will be kind of only in market size when it comes to, if you look at where they are. Provo is not a huge market size. They have a huge fan base. So their market is essentially everywhere there's Mormons, which is everywhere. And then just like Notre Dame is everywhere there's Catholics, which is everywhere. And then you look at Cincinnati, a very growing, huge market. Houston, gigantic market. Orlando is exploding. So you've got these growing markets. That's where, a lot of this stuff kind of knocks it out, where you want to create brands. And don't forget what Burke Magnus, and Dennis Dodd had a column, and it reminded me of this, where he said, look, everybody thinks about market size, and that's certainly, a benefit. But what they're trying to do, what the Big Ten knows that it needs to do, is they needed to increase, for their television network and for television partners, good TV shows. What are good TV shows when it comes to sports? Better matchups that people know. So the Big 12, in order to kind of get a chunk of that, is not going to be able to create that kind of buzz again as they kind of go down the ladder. So I don't know if there's schools in the Mountain Time Zone like Colorado State or someone like that really moves the needle for the Big 12 right now,
the ones
unless
that
they
would
just
be in
wait
play.
out,
Yeah,
wait out the Pac-12 for 5 years and see what
Mountain
happens
Time,
then.
I don't know if I'm right, but Boise State,
Colorado
Air
State,
Force Academy,
New Mexico, Air Force, Wyoming, Nevada, UNLV, Boise State.
Okay.
I say none of those.
All right.
Yeah.
Ope D-Don, I hope I said that right. $10 super chat, thank you. Can the four corner schools afford to fall further behind in exposure for their schools and sports. It could take a few years to recover for recruiting, in my humble opinion, beside no buyout of granted rights or exit fees now.
I think there are some of those, but the TV deal is up. So that's a little bit of a different thing. But, I mean, nobody can really afford to fall behind. I mean, you're going to lose money no matter what, but again,
here's a question from RH5. Go ahead.
Yeah, let me the Mountain Time Zone, going back to that one, Colorado State, Boise, New Mexico, Wyoming, Nevada, UNLV, those are all the mountain schools that are not, Air Force, I guess, in there as well. Those are all the ones that are not in the Pac-12, and I just briefly said it, not interested. I don't think any of those move the needle at all. I think that, in a different scenario where maybe you're just trying to grab as much territory as you possibly can, then, maybe you go with Colorado State there. But I just think that if the Pac-12's flimsy, then why don't you wait out Colorado before worrying about Colorado State? I don't think New Mexico's anywhere close to being on your must-have radar. Same with Wyoming. Nevada and UNLV, I know there's the whole pitch about UNLV in Las Vegas, but that's just seemed like more of a pipe dream kind of thing at this point, of like they're selling the Vegas dream, but without really any substance to back up why that would actually work. I mean, you're like, yeah, the city's great, it's exploding. Okay, well, how do the running Rebs get a chunk of that? Because it's not exploding because of UNLV. UNLV could benefit from that, but there's no indication that they are, or indication that they would suddenly just be a powerhouse money-wise for the next 20 years because Vegas is exploding. It's just a lot of what if, I think, with UNLV. And then Boise State's the most logical, but I just don't think they have the oomph right now. I don't think
they're trying to get there, yeah.
They're trying to get there, but I just don't think they have the firepower right now to make that much sense. Really, when you hear Boise State brought up, it's the time zone for one, but then it's basically beating Oklahoma in a bowl game. We're still living off of that, quite frankly. And, yes, they've had very sustained success, but not to the level of that's Gonzaga in basketball, that we have to have that. They're not right at that level. And we got a good friend up there in Jeremiah Dickey, but they're just not at that level where they are a must-have. And especially when the question is, you take the Pac out of the equation, but the Pac's in the equation. So they're all ahead of the line. But I understand that does beg the question of, if you do take the Pac out and Yormark wants to go west, how does he do that?
Well, maybe he doesn't do it now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
I think people see that is because he's said, TV deal, got it done now. Texas and OU, done now. Yeah. But the third thing would be expansion, but maybe that's just not done now because the conditions are not fully ripe to do that yet. It might be a long-term thing. So
we need to take a break because of a guest that we have. We got a great conversation. We can get back to it. If you guys are going to wrap it up if you can quickly.
Well, I wanted to answer that one, so go back to that other super chat if you have that in front of you.
The $10 one?
Whichever the last couple of ones were.
Without the Pac-12, what schools would be that one? And then we have the one from Ope Didon. Can the four corner schools afford to fall further behind in exposure for their schools and sports? It could take a few years to recover for recruiting, in my imagination or opinion, beside no buyout of granted right or exit fees now.
I mean, I think they can afford it for the moment, but, I mean, how long are we talking and how much of a drop down are we talking? I mean, again, we don't know the details, so are we assuming that the Pac-12 is going to be like $10 million less? Okay, how long can they really sustain that if they're suddenly making like $30 million a school and they're losing USC and UCLA, and they're barely on cable television? They're basically only on Apple TV. I don't think that too many of them can afford that level of drop in money to where, because then you're talking about there's the A tier with the SEC and the Big Ten, and there's a B tier with a stuck ACC and a Big 12 that's trying to basically reinvent itself and at least has some momentum. And then there would be a C tier where the Pac-12 would basically be by themselves making far less than everyone else and also with much less exposure than everyone else. And I don't know how you spin that. I don't know how you spin academics or, whatever you want to throw out there that they are better at. That's fine, but less exposure, far less television money would be very problematic. So, I think the question is what are we talking about, money-wise that they're going to be making on whatever network they're going to be on? So without those answers, it's kind of hard to say. But in that scenario, let's say there's a massive drop down in money and they're only on Apple TV exclusively. I don't think that everybody's going to jive with that. I think that you start to see some rattling of cages for sure.
You might start to see some fraying at the edges or within the conference. RH5, I'll read this one because I wanted to a minute ago. $5 million doesn't lure teams like the Four Corners. where they would have multiple nearby travel partners in Brigham Young, the Kansas schools, Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, and maybe the others in the Four Corners?
I think it would all just depend on the institution and what their, vision is for. I mean, I understand that sounds like a lot of money, but there's also a lot of logistics that go into that. And maybe BYU's close enough for somebody that's enough to make the move, but it's all, I think, in the eye of the beholder. If you're a Washington State or an Oregon State, I know that you're not really involved in the equation. You're hoping that the Pac-12 stays together as much as possible. And it seems like most of the schools over there are hoping that. Maybe it's because of lack of options or just they don't want to get rid of tradition or whatever, but I don't think that's a move. You just go, $5 million, all right, I'm out the door. Yeah. I just think that it's a bit more complex than money. Money's at the root of it, but I don't think that a few $1 million is like, let's throw everything away and start, this brand new adventure. But who knows? For some of them, maybe it would be. That remains to be seen. When
we come back, Dick Harmon, longtime columnist, Deseret News out of Salt Lake City. He's been seeing some of what's been out there this week and seen some of the reaction for whether it's national media or Pac-12 media. And what's his reaction? He's next on 365 Sports. Pioneer Still and Pipe, 1943, they opened up their doors, and they've been in business ever since. They have been through the big box stores who come in and basically lower all the prices because they have more inventory. They can do that, and some local companies just drown. They can't keep up. They have. Great customer service and incredible product, and now they have bigger, better, faster, and stronger with their brand new location, including a new 2,500 square foot showroom, hundreds of new pieces of product, shorter product for you to haul around whenever you come pick it up, whether it's tubing or angle or whatever it might be, instead of having to pick it up and then go cut it yourself or get somebody else to do that. They are there for you to build heavy product, commercial and real estate. The Pioneer boys have been amazing. Think about it, the longevity and the sustainability since 1943. The brand new location on the east side of I-35 in Waco on the Loop, pioneerboys.com.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes. Cut cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
He is snowed in. Dick Harmon, Deseret News in Salt Lake City, wrote an article earlier today. Went up. Who leaked that Pac-12 was talk? That Pac-12 talk in the Apple TV Plus, and why is that important? Dick Harmon, who's been with us before, joins us on 365 Sports with Paul Craig, and I'm David Smoak. Dick, thanks for your time. We appreciate it. What have you thought about kind of the leaking of that information, your thoughts about it, and then the response? Was it leaked, in your opinion, on purpose? Because the response was like a thud, and even in some cases a blowback.
Well, it's kind of hard to say, but yes, it seems like that was leaked information at a time just a week after a memo came out from the Pac-12 President's Council that, hey, we're sticking together in solidarity, and it just was timing that this came out, 4 or 5 days later, and it was received with, like I say, it was like a lead balloon, just a thud. People came out and started criticizing it. National people criticized it. People inside the Pac-12, is this what we're going to do? Is this how it's going to come off? So it had an effect. And it probably had the effect that whoever leaked it wanted it to. And you could draw up whoever sources and what their motivations would be, but it's really intriguing to me that happened just a few days after that memo came out.
Dick, do you think that the conditions are ripe for schools to want to leave right now, or is this, if they don't get this right, then 5 years from now, that will be when it happens?
I think as things go on and on that it probably would happen later. And the reasons why is I think that the stark reality has hit the Pac-12, that they're not going to get the money that they thought they would, that George promised them back last summer that would be $40 million a team. That's not going to happen. It's going to be half of that. It'll be in the low 20s probably, and I think that has settled in. Also, we've seen no deal. We've also seen no really expansion of the league, even though SMU and San Diego State have been talked about as possible candidates. That hasn't happened. So there's really been nothing that's going towards anything that maybe the status quo they'll stick together. The 10 will be there together to support each other, build what they have, take less, and maybe look to the future for the next 5-year contract.
What's kind of been the summary of the reactions that you've seen or the people that you've talked to in discussing this? Like you said, it dropped like a lead balloon, but just in people that you've talked to on a day-to-day basis in Pac-12 country, I mean, what's kind of been the scuttlebutt surrounding this?
Well, I think I could sum it up by saying people are very disappointed. People, I think, in other parts of the country that have seen this develop have made fun of it and poked fun of it and been disparaging towards it. And overall, it's just been spread out like it's a failure. And I think that's the reaction inside of the Pac-12 and outside of the Pac-12. I think in Big 12 country, I think a lot of people going back and forth on social media have taken their sides. There's a lot of spinning going on the West Coast, and there's a lot of kind of laughing in Big 12 country because they're kind of, Brett Yormark set them up very pretty and made a a great move in the summer, a series of moves that really set the Big 12 up in a great situation. And now a few months later, that climate is just not the same, and the Pac-12 has taken it on the chin.
Dick, did you ever think it would get to where it is today, less than a year after USC and UCLA to the Big Ten story popped?
No, because I thought maybe the Pac-12 would be more proactive, and that's been the problem, Dave. It's been that problem for 12 years. They have kind of an elitist attitude about them. They should have made a move. They should have consummated the deal with Oklahoma and Texas Tech and Oklahoma State, brought them in. They have a problem that they look down at other universities and colleges. They come from a perch of their academic success and their research institution money, and I don't think that on the West Coast they take football as serious as they do in the middle of the country and in the Southeast Conference. I've been to Baylor. I've seen the passion there. I've been in Texas Stadium. I've seen what that is all about. My mother's a half Comanche Indian from Oklahoma. That's where her home is in Lawton. I know what football means in the Midwest to people, and it doesn't seem like that same passion exists on the West Coast. I will say, however, the University of Utah has proven, coming out of the Mountain West Conference, the Pac-12, they've proven that if you give a team some resources, you give them the money, and you get a great coach, that you can win a conference championship, not once, but twice. TCU comes from the same league, the Mountain West Conference. They get invited. They step up at the plate. They were playing in the national championship. The last 12 years, they should have invited some schools. It could have been San Diego State. It should have been some others that potentially could have been the next Utah or the TCU. They wouldn't do it. And they wouldn't do it on basis because there's a crisis of snobbery by some of the institutions, the presidents. And it's the presidents and chancellors of that university and two commissioners, which I think have really caused the Pac-12 to be in where it is right now. The decision-making they have, the reticence they do to shake hands with regular people in flyover country, it's cost them, and they're paying the price right now. And there are a lot of people laughing at them.
Dick, you mentioned Utah moving into the Pac-12. Do you think they could coexist in a conference with BYU just based on our interactions with fans? They don't seem to care to be in the same room together more than just that once a year.
Now, it's been that way for 100 years. Some of the first games that they had in athletics ended up fights, and that's 80 years ago, and it hasn't changed much since then. It's a passionate rivalry, and it's one that should continue. It's one that both the fan bases love. I think some of the Utah fans, they kind of thought they're beyond that now. But I think if you talk to some of the regular ones, they love it. They like it, and it is one of the greatest rivalries in the country. It's been that way for a long, long time. You don't only have to be around here during rivalry to see that. You see the same thing with Texas and Oklahoma. You see the same thing with Nebraska and how it used to be with Oklahoma. Some of those rivalries are going around. But no, this is one of the great 10 rivalries in the country. And I think that's what college football is all about. That's what is missing now, that we're dissembling all these great rivalries. And I think that if Utah were to come into the Big 12, that it would continue. It would be one of the great rivalries that league has, and the TV people know that.
Dick, you mentioned that, some of the attitude, but hasn't joining the Pac-12, as you mentioned, been the best thing that's happened to Utah because they have the extra benefits, they have the more exposure, they're able to win a Power 5 conference championship. So even though there's a little bit of whatever those terms are, you mentioned snobbery or elitism, et cetera, hasn't it been the best thing that happened to Utah?
Oh, absolutely. It was from day one, and it has been for the last 12 years. They've steadily built their program. They've had great recruiting. They've gone after speed. They've gone into areas of Florida and Texas and California. They've been able to get transfers. They've been able to get, sell their product. They put people in the NFL, and it's shown in the last two seasons where they've taken on the very best that the Pac-12 has to happen, and they've beat them. And they've got 2 titles and 2 Rose Bowl appearances to show it. So, yes, I mean, it has taken Kyle Whittingham, who played football with my younger brother at Provo High School. He's a great coach. He's a great recruiter. And he has done such a tremendous job in elevating that program and kind of taking from where Urban Meyer had it and continuing that. So that's been great for them. And I think BYU looks at that and say, hey, we can do that too.
Do you think the Pac-12s can still somehow figure this out? They're not going to like just evaporate. Oregon and Washington, they're not going to just stop. It's not going to end. But how do you expect, Dick, this now to come together? How is this going to work out? Because they have to have something released and something to announce here. It has to be within the next, you would think, 2 to 3, 6 weeks at the latest.
Well, I think they're going to accept lesser money. I think they'll go half streaming and then have maybe some linear contracts. I don't know what those would be, and I don't think anybody can name what they would be. But they're going to probably cobble something together in the low 20 million range, and they'll try to stick together. What we can predict, Dave, is that some of those school presidents and some of their fan bases say, "Hey, we're not putting up with this." No, and if that's the case, then you might see a four-corner situation. The best brands in that league are Washington and Oregon. I don't know that they would make a move unless they were given guarantees and maybe a part of that $100 million that Brett got in the separation agreement or some other type of things. But I don't think that they would sign a extended grant of rights contract with the Big 12. I think they would be in it for the short term. But I think the other schools in the Four Corners, looking at the way that they were treated by USC and UCLA in some aspects, and the revenue sharing over the past years, I think that they might look to the Big 12 and say, "Hey, let's go land there. Let's go do our thing there and grow and be a part of a very passionate league," because the passion's not on the West Coast. All you have to do is a game at Cal or Stanford and looking in the stands. People are migrating out of California. That's not where it's at. That's where a great population base is. But as far as passionate football, I don't see it.
M. Morris1 on our chat room said, Utah needs to quit acting like they are just lucky to be in the Pac-12 and demand more say. How much say does Utah have? Everyone has a vote. How much oomph do they have when it comes to whatever the future might be?
Not as much as Oregon and Washington. That's all I can say. I think those are the two big two big entities that hold the biggest spoon in that league right now, and they are going to be the big dogs that kind of lead them around. I think Utah needs to look out for itself. This pact of solidarity, it's a great thing, and it's probably what you need to do and what you have to do. But there'll be coming a time in the next month or so, some of these teams have got to stop looking out for themselves, because that's what USC and UCLA did. That's what Texas and Oklahoma did. And that's certainly what Nebraska and Missouri and Texas A&M are doing. So there comes a time when you got to look after yourself, and I would advise Utah to do the same.
Do you think that Utah, because that's where you are, not that that's who you're representing, but do you feel like they would understand any kind of unequal revenue sharing if Washington and Oregon said, okay, we're going to help keep this thing together, but we want more?
Well, that's a good question. I think that they love being in the Pac-12 so much and being associated with what they do with Pac-12 football that they might go along with that, but I can't speak for them. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but they take great pride in being members of the Pac-12. And if that's what it keeps to be together and be in that league, they probably would, but I can't speak for them. But I could see, because of the real love they have of wearing that Pac-12 badge, that, yeah, they might do that.
How much does SMU and San Diego State, the idea of that, move the radar, if at all?
Oh, I don't think it moves it very much, but I don't think, and that's no disrespect to either one of those schools. In fact, if you look at San Diego State in football and basketball wins, they're ahead of Ohio State over the last 10 years. It's a great place. San Diego is awesome. I've been there for the last 30 years on covering football and basketball trips. It's a great trip, great city. And if it is in Southern California, it'd be a great addition to not only the Big 12, but to the Pac-12. SMU, a smaller college, saw them in a bowl game playing BYU this past year. Have nothing bad to say to them. It's a great school. I don't think it has the cachet as an athletic institution as other places might be. But, TCU wasn't really necessarily considered that kind of a powerhouse playing the national championship so soon, late in its existence. But it did.
Oh, absolutely.
So I don't think you should. Yeah, I don't think you should put a label on anybody. Give them the money, give them the resources. SMU can be good.
Dick, the way that Utah is aligned, and I know I keep bringing them up because that's where you are, but if the way Utah is aligned with everybody else in the Pac-12, it seems like no matter what it looks like now with, oh my God, how much money are they going to make or not make? Is it a streaming only or whatever they piece together? That from the indications is that these schools are all still pretty much aligned together, right? When it comes to who they are, what their goals, what their values are. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. I think they align themselves with people that believe the same way that they do, and University of Utah certainly fits in a lot of the portion of the Pac-12 and as far as their cultural fit. Probably a lot more so than a school like BYU, which is a religious school. I don't think the Pac-12 is interested in associating or having a school like BYU in it, and they made that decision a long time ago. I think Cal and Stanford were the two that were kind of protesting that. But I do think this, Dave, that if they had gone, they would be in a far better place than they are now if they had invited BYU years ago. You can interview any athletic department head in any of those schools in the Pac-12, and they'll tell you that BYU fans travel. You guys have seen it at Baylor.
Mm-hmm.
They bring 2,000 to 3,000 fans all over the country. They've increased the revenues from ticket sales in each one of those Pac-12 schools that they visited, just like they do in the West Coast Conference in basketball.
Thank you for your time, Dick. We appreciate it. Are you? Did I hear you when I spoke with you earlier today? Are you snowed in or under?
It's snowed a lot here. I have 8 inches of snow on top of my car. I just brought the garbage cans in when you called me, Dave, and it was hard making it through the cul-de-sac with a bunch of snow on it. But it's a warm, sunny day today. It's not as cold, but we have been hit with a lot of snow, and we need it. We've been in a drought.
Well, good. Yeah, good. Hope you get out of it.
Okay, thanks for having me on, Dave. You guys got a great show. I always listen to it, and you have great guests on, and appreciate it. It's been an honor.
Thank you very much, Dick. Dick Harmon from Deseret News, again from Salt Lake City. Some of you agree with what he's saying. Some of you don't, like you do with us or with how you do today in the chat room. There's so much out there. We appreciate that. Appreciate your time, and also trying to give you so many different angles when it comes to what we do, college football, college athletics, and yet there are still many other topics we get to. In fact, we're going to get to Alabama winning last night in South Carolina, and Brandon Miller had himself one hell of a game. All right, this is 365 Sports. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco. They have a 48-foot walk-in humidor loaded, packed with cigars. I was there earlier in the week, and I bought a new cutter because the one I had was just kind of getting dull. So when I would cut a cigar, it would kind of fray. And I gave it to them. They're going to fix that. They're going to try to sharpen it, like you can do with a knife, except they have a piece of equipment that can help get the cutter I've been using to be even better. So when I cut a cigar, it's clean. So I got another one. And on top of that, while I was there, walked inside the 48-foot walk-in humidor and looked at some options that are there from the elite brands, including the 2021 Cigar of the Year. I'm talking about around the world, the 1964 Padron. It's Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans with also Vita Dreams, a gummy that allows you to help you to get a better restful night's sleep. Don's Humidor and Coffee Beans with Cheyenne, Ashley, and also Carol in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Kick off 2023 with a bang at Allen Samuels in Waco during the President's Day sales event. Get a 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo with total values up to $2,000 and 1.9% for 72 months on second and third row options. That's right, 1.9% for 72 months plus rebates. Or how about the 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport with up to $3,500 in total values plus an extra $500 to first responders at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Chuck Verno, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Chuck Verno, 720 North 64th Street in Waco, 254-732-1161. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
365 Sports. We'll have Max Olson, theathletic.com college football writer, senior writer, with us in a moment. But real quick note from last night, Alabama beat South Carolina 78-76. The game went into overtime, and Brandon Miller, who's been a part of that story involving the former Alabama player who is up on charges of murder, scored 41 last night, went off, including what tied the game, put it in overtime, then won the game in the final second as number 2 Alabama beat South Carolina 78-76 in what obviously has been a really distracting week for the Crimson Tide basketball team.
Well, I mean, scores 41. I can see where Nate Oates, I'm not going to bench him, where technically he didn't commit a crime, and he didn't. I mean, look, he brought a guy's property back to him, and there's nothing they can charge him with, but, there's just no morality in this decision here.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's a human being part. It's like, oh, well, there's not a rule that says that. Well, there doesn't have to be a rule to just make a decision as a human being. Like that's the scary part to me that gets lost, is like if there's not a rule for it, it means you don't have to do it or shouldn't do it. Just being the the good person. That's wild to me. It's like I don't know. From my standpoint, I think it would have probably been better served for all involved for Brandon Miller to probably sit for a game or two. I mean, I know I've never advocated for him to get kicked off the team. I see that there's like super extreme opinions and all of that. I mean, he didn't commit a crime like you said, but just the way it was all handled initially with Nate Oates' comments, and I know there's been backtracking and retracking and, well, I didn't know that information was available. It's just been a dadgum mess, okay? Let's just call it that. Like the whole response to this thing has been pretty messy. And yeah, I mean, with all of this mess and with all of this heat, they decided the best idea was to go trot him out on the court and keep moving on like nothing was really happening, even though everybody, knows that's not exactly the case. And so then to see him out there and play hero last night when Obviously most of the talk is far from talking about hero behavior. Is just it puts you at a weird place because, yeah, great performance, super win for Alabama, but there's just this underlying part of it that's just really gross, and it's a really ugly story. So, I hate it again for the people who have suffered the most, which is a young woman who is no longer with us and her family, and there's just I'm sure wreckage and destruction, that's far wider spanning than we even realize at the moment, which all those involved. But it's just, it's an ugly story. I don't really know how to talk about it. And I certainly don't want to celebrate last night because of, the subject. So that's their decision. They're moving forward with it, and we'll see what Alabama does the rest of the way. But I don't think this story is going away by any means. But very interesting timing, and, that was one heck of a performance.
Max Olson, theathletic.com senior college football writer. Max, I know it's not a football topic, but the Brandon Miller,
please
Alabama.
Don't make me talk about that one. Oh,
okay.
my gosh.
Yeah. Okay, I won't. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I'm good. I'm joking with you guys. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, that's a tough situation there for sure. And you can't lose sight of the victim in all of this, obviously, and what's going on there. It's pretty startling.
So what are your thoughts this week, the last time we spoke with you about a week ago, but your thoughts, in fact, no, we didn't because you were snowed in, I believe, in
right.
Lincoln. But you've seen the stories we've had from different angles, guest writers, media, others involved with schools on yet again another week about to go by, and the Pac-12 doesn't have their TV deal. I wish them the best, I really do. But your thoughts about Apple TV Plus and that story being popped out?
Yeah, not surprising. Certainly it seemed like you think back to early in this process when the Pac-12 announced last summer that they were going to open up these conversations. You knew that the end game was not to, that George Kliavkoff's preference was not to re-up with the current partners, but to take it to market and see what he could get from these streamers. And so it makes sense that, they're trying to get whatever they can from Amazon or Apple or whoever. But, man, it just seems like the longer this drags on, the worse it looks. And, certainly you already had modest expectations to begin with that, this money needs to be similar to the Big 12 and the deal they struck and needs to be similar to the ACC. And now, certainly I feel like just the pressure on the commissioner there to deliver a deal that is acceptable at this point, it has got to be cranked all the way up with, especially when, as we all know, these things, are connected to granted rights and all that. And so, yeah, I certainly have my own opinions on whether going the streaming route makes sense, but at this point, he's got to just get the money, bottom line.
Max, what do you think? Is it the overall number that they can't get past that has slowed this up? Or are they trying to fix too many of Larry Scott's mistakes in this as well, just in one fell swoop?
Yeah, you're certainly starting in a bad position with the Larry Scott tenure that preceded you. You're starting from a bad position, as we know the Big 12 did, where you're losing two big brands going into these talks, right? So that adjusts the value and the perception, at least of what you're bringing to the table. They're going into these talks, but then also, yeah, in terms of what you're shooting for here, man, it's now that and I think that it all goes towards the savvy of what Brett Yormark did in jumping in line and getting the deal done that he got, was I think it set a pretty high bar for you now. And it's do you get it all in one deal with Apple or somebody else? Or, can you find some way to get a lot of money from a streamer and still have the right kind of partnership with an ESPN? I think that's the question here going forward. But I think you guys are probably right that every day this drags on. We all remember the anxiety that the Big 12 has had in the past couple of years when there's just this kind of uncertainty. It's no fun for anybody.
You mentioned Brett Yormark there. As time has gone on, and now he's going to be, coming up close to, I guess, a year later on this summer of having officially been on the job. But just what kind of continued responses or feedback do you get on the job that he's done early on in this first year as commissioner?
Yeah, I think the thing that I probably underestimated a little bit too, when you think back to Halloween when they were getting this deal done to extend with ESPN and Fox, was like, you guys think about it, like if Ray Yarmark had not gotten the deal he was looking for there, and they said, okay, we'll wait till spring of 24 and we'll take this to the open market and we'll get more money. Like, do you guys think the Pac-12 would maybe be trying to poach Big 12 schools right now?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I mean, just the defensive move by that was probably important too, and I didn't think enough about it. But the Brett Yormark tenure so far, like it's just crazy from the day he took over or was even announced that he was going to take over, how much has happened in college athletics since then. And so I feel like that he's constantly been having to work on these things and be talking to a lot of different parties and stuff. And honestly, now that the Texas and Oklahoma deal is done, I'm curious to see, because that was one of the big things on the agenda here, and as well as the TV. I'm interested to see what Brett Yormark's Big 12 looks like, because I think that not having a lot of clarity on that situation has probably made it tough to kind of move forward with all the initiatives and big ideas that he has for this conference. Now that you know what it's going to be from 24 on, I think this next year is going to be really interesting to see kind of what his vision is, what he's figured out to the Big 12, what the strengths and weaknesses are, and kind of like when he talks about modernizing it and things like that, what does that look like?
You wonder how many times in the history of the Big 12, which started back in 1996 when they've had, maybe 4 or 5 and an interim commissioner in between, how many times have we seen among the 12 teams who will remain after Texas OU leave, and even maybe Texas and Oklahoma, all of them seem to have respect for the commissioner. With all due respect to Bob Bowlesby, and there are things you could pick at him, but have you ever seen it this united towards one person who's been able to come in and get this kind of off the ground, off the canvas?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I mean, I don't know how much of a relationship there is between Texas and Oklahoma and the current Big 12 commissioner, just because of the kind of strained situation he walked into, and the fact that you've had to have some meetings without them since taking over. But I think that all goes back to where this started, which was, I think. You're right, for kind of like the history and the perception of the Big 12 is like a divided, board leading the way and stuff like that. And a lot of people, a lot of these like kind of political pressures and stuff with Texas and all that stuff. Like, I think the board was pretty united in the search to go hire that commissioner and why they chose Brett Yormark. And I think you continue to kind of see that play out, that they're behind him and they, he brought his own kind of vision and a very different type of experience than Bob Bowlesby when he interviewed for this thing. And I think so far that partnership's been pretty good. And you've got these schools kind of feeling like, okay, let's see what he's going to do here. And let's get behind, a pretty ambitious vision for the future of this conference.
Max, are there 2 times a year for you now when the transfer portal is open and when it's not?
Sorry, you cut out for me. Say that again.
Are there 2 seasons for you when the transfer portal is open and when it's not?
It's a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. I mean, honestly, it's since the window closed, I think a month ago, it has been a lot slower in terms of transfers. That stuff has really gone quiet here, I feel like, over the past few weeks. And I think that kind of tells you the window has worked a little bit in terms of, yeah, it's pretty chaotic for the 60 days a year that it's open, but I think the coaches got their wish here that you're not seeing a bunch of guys hop in the portal here when these windows aren't open. So, yeah, that's a positive, and it leaves me with plenty of time to do other stuff, that's for sure.
Max, how's our buddy Matt Rule doing up in Lincoln right now? How's that continued to progress as they get geared up for spring ball?
Yeah, off to a really positive start. It seems like, I think the people of Nebraska, obviously at the time of the coaching change and stuff, you're pretty heartbroken about the Scott Frost era not working out. But like it does seem like Matt Rule has been really well received in Lincoln. I think just his enthusiasm for Lincoln, Nebraska, and for Nebraska athletics, like not just football, and like he's a guy that is like going to all the basketball games and all the sports and stuff, and like really he and his staff have just been all over the state and recruiting and stuff. Like I think the feedback so far that I've heard has just been really impressed, and just how, obviously, as you guys know, how detailed these guys are and kind of their big blueprint for how they do it. Like it seems like it's been a really positive fit so far.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because his first year at Temple, we know didn't go well. We know what happened his first year at Baylor. It was a loss to Liberty to kick off the year, and then, of course, a terrible year. But they turned it around on how, if they understand the way he works, because it's not usually going to go from where they were, which is not much room other than to go up. But if they're ready for how he kind of builds or tries to rebuild things. Max,
do they have patience in Lincoln for maybe not a super quick start, I think is the question.
Yeah, I mean, if he gets to a bowl game his first year, knowing you and I and anyone that's watched them, I mean, that's a hell of a deal. But he's also usually
you got me thinking about Buckshot Calvert over here.
Yeah, I know, believe me. But his normal MO or DNA is to go backwards first and then move forward. And some people go, well, lower the bar even further, and then whatever you do after that, it's nothing but gravy. I don't think he does that on purpose, but I have actually seen people who have said that before. If you could name Brett Yormark or compare him to an animal, which animal would he be?
Which animal would he be? Oh my gosh, this feels like a trap. I don't know. He's pretty. I mean, he's pretty relentless, isn't he, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What comes to mind? I don't know. I'm drawing a blank here.
I mean, he's like
a leopard. Somebody
like
put a leopard.
Like a puma.
Yeah.
Like strikes fast, and that kind of out of nowhere. I don't know.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Wow. You're really like throwing me some randoms today. I love it.
Somebody said a viper snake. Oh God. I just a honey badger. No, that's only for Tyrone Matthew. It was a random question. I know it was. Craig's disgusted by me asking.
It's just so random. It's just so entirely random.
Did that come from your brain or the chat room?
If the moon were made of spare ribs, would
yeah,
I know I would.
I saw somebody bring up leopard, and it made me ask a question. Just something different, trying to keep you off. How much of that snow has melted, by the way, if that you were underneath?
We're doing better, Smokey. I appreciate. I tell you guys that. Getting to shovel 12 inches of snow is a hell of a workout. It does take about 2 hours at my house, but it was a heck of a workout last Thursday. So, yeah, I missed you on that. But, yeah, the snow has melted. The roads are safe. We're doing okay here. And as I told Smokey when it was snowing pretty bad here, it was definitely enough snow to bring the entire state of Texas to its knees. That's for sure.
Oh,
that was 12 times as much snow that you would have crushed us 12 times.
Yeah, 12 inches more than we ever would need. Now, when you use this the shovel, is it one of those big, huge shovels that gets big, massive pieces of snow at a time?
Yeah, I got the big shovel, but honestly, it's about time to invest in the snowblower, which I imagine they don't even sell those in Texas, I'm guessing. But I think that it's an expensive investment, but I think at this point, as I'm getting older, it's probably worth it here at some point.
Yeah, we're not going down to the local Home Depot and getting a Zamboni or anything in Texas.
I saw someone win one on The Price is Right one time, and Drew was like, "So where are you from, Doug?" And he's like,
"Florida."
He's like, "Malibu."
Max, I did have a couple more college football related questions for you, although these are fascinating in their own right. But with SMU in this Pac-12 expansion talk, I know there's nothing official on that front, but I was just curious from your perspective. There's a thought, when the Big 12 was going through their expansion a couple years back, that was a team that was looked at along with, Boise State and others. But how much of a sleeping giant, if at all, do you think that SMU could be if they had the backing of the Pac-12, albeit with, obvious questions about streaming and visibility and things of that nature?
Yeah, it's interesting, like the opportunity here potentially. I think certainly the perception, especially with this last round of Big 12 expansion, or at least, with Bob Bowlesby in charge, I think certainly the perception was SMU's not big enough. SMU doesn't move the needle enough for us. It's not additive in terms of value when you already have, the schools you have in Texas kind of dominating the TV markets and stuff like that. And so I've always understood why SMU, despite, being a candidate certainly in the last round, doesn't tend to get taken very seriously. And certainly you can understand why people at TCU would have opposition to that idea anyways, right? So you kind of understand where they where they fit relative to the Big 12. But honestly, for the Pac-12, like I kind of get the idea that, hey, can we plant a flag in DFW? Can, this kind of resources, Power 5 resources at a school like SMU, bring it up, as we've seen, obviously, TCU and Utah and others be really successful once you get called up like that. And then certainly, like, that could be additive for the Pac-12. And so it's like, it's interesting where it's like, maybe the Big 12 doesn't take you very seriously, but at the same time, they might be a little bothered by the idea of the Pac-12 having a little bit of territory within their region.
Max, when you look at that, and let's just say outside of the Pac-12, which we don't know what's going to happen, and again, hope everything works out for everybody. Do any of these schools do that for the Big 12 to the West, including San Diego State or someone like that? Is that, I know that they're connected, it appears that's going to be imminent with the Pac-12. What about UNLV? They've got this bustling city, and yet it's not because UNLV is there. Would that ever be down the road something that somebody would want to latch on to?
It's an interesting question. I think it's especially like if you're in the Mountain West right now at a number of these schools, you're kind of wondering, like, what is our future and what should we be shooting for here, especially when you've seen the amount of realignment that's happened in other G5 leagues. But I think that as we've seen, like the goalpost or the standard or whatever has kind of changed a little bit every time we go through this stuff. And now I think you want, it used to be about TV market, and obviously that's important, but like, I do think, especially with the streaming stuff too, like just the size of the fan base also matters a lot more now too. And so, like, I know that was an advantage, I think, for UCF this time around. And certainly BYU. So like, I think that it just depends on like what the TV executives are looking for the next time we go through this stuff. But like, yeah, I think if you're UNLV or one of these Mountain West schools, every day you're probably having meetings and talking about like, what do we need to do to like get taken seriously next time this stuff happens.
Final thing from me, Max, any of those floated rules to help quicken pace of play, scratch your itch at all as a college football fan? I know you spent plenty of hours in a press box with these long games. I think most of us agree that the commercials are what drags out these games as long as they are, but do you have any particular thoughts on the ideas of trying to quicken the pace of play?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're bad ideas. I think the running clock after incompletions was probably the one that surprised me a little bit. I'm kind of with you guys, like between watching them on TV and being at games. Like, I don't know, my reflex when I saw that news is initially like, it's the commercials, and it's definitely the replay system that you feel like makes the game feel longer. Right now, you can get into like this little stuff here and make these tweaks, and I'm sure there will be an actual change because that stuff adds up certainly. But will that mean shorter games that actually do mean fewer injuries? Like I don't know. It's hard to really like kind of trust that would come true. I'm not like really violently opposed to it, but I kind of have the same reaction as you guys. They're like, I'm not sure. These little changes, they don't seem that bad. The NFL obviously has, it brings it a little bit in line with the NFL, but to some degree, I don't know that that's really kind of solving the problem that you feel when you watch a game.
Max, thank you very much. Appreciate your time as always. Senior college football writer, Max Olson.
Gotcha, Paul.
Got you, Paul, with theathletic.com. By the way,
like the comment.
Hold on. Tide Guy. $49 super chat. Another great show. Great place for knowledge. Thank you very much. Sorry about that, Craig.
Roll freaking Tide, buddy. Thank you, Tide Guy. Roll Tide. That's very generous, and we do appreciate any and all super chats. And if you attach a question to a super chat, we'll get to it as quickly as we possibly can. But, thank you very much. I like the comment that I saw. I don't always have the chat directly in front of me, but when you were asking those very random questions you were asking, it was very fun, but it was so random, like just so entirely random if you were an animal. Somebody said Smokey's CBD is hitting, and I just couldn't help but chuckle a little bit because that would explain it. But I don't think, that you didn't go the CBD route.
That would be that Delta 8.
Yeah.
No, honestly, for the first time in a while, I have felt better because I've had that lower back, and probably because I was sometimes a little bit,
loosey goosey.
Yeah.
I'm not tightened up
all
because
tightened
of
up on
pain.
all the stuff that puckers you up a little bit too much.
Yeah, I would tell you that Delta 8's not a bad little go there.
What?
I've had it.
What?
The Delta, the stuff that you said that they sell the Delta 8 gummies. at Don's Humidor. I've had one of those.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Make you happy or to make you relaxed? Is it
Very,
like smoking a doobie?
Very relaxed. No, it's not quite that.
Smoking a doobie.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what the kids call it today.
Oh, yeah. It's all over TikTok,
Wait a
right?
minute. Is that a blunt now?
I think even blunts, that's probably over as well.
I think that I'm past of even knowing what the latest terms probably are. I'm probably outdated on that.
Garrett, what are they called now?
I mean, you got a numerous names.
Boy,
we could go on about that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right.
No, I get it, though. When you're in pain, you don't realize how much it affects you, and then you suddenly don't have it as much anymore. And, yeah, it's amazing the change that it can make and how much it can lighten up your life a little bit. So, yeah, it makes me think of what was the question again?
I don't even.
Brett Yormark was an animal?
Yeah.
What would he be?
Somebody, it was Hayden Maxwell who said, I think, leopard. And it was about the time when Max was still discussing it. I said, I'm going to kind of change it up a little bit here.
I think he's got some.
It's like a shark.
Yeah, he's got some shark qualities for. Yeah, I was thinking of kind of like along the same lines. Very much a predator, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And I was thinking kind of maybe a big cat as far as just kind of lying in the weeds and waiting for his moment to pounce, but being very sneaky and, don't think that you're just walking through the brush and all safe and clear because he's there and he's waiting in the wings. But, I mean, yeah, he deserves a lot of credit. I mean, I also think that the Big 12 presidents and the ADs deserve a lot of credit because he's not making every move by himself. Like, they obviously have input, but there's no doubt about it. They could have gone various directions with the commissioner role after
that could have been a disaster.
Bowlesby. And one of the things that they did, and there was pushback on it at the time, if y'all remember, is like, well, he's not from our background. Like, he's a TV rights guy. He's a network guy. He's a NBA. He's not a college.
Does he even know where Manhattan, Kansas is?
Well, yeah, I had that question. I mean, like, you get this slick talking New Yorker, and I don't believe in every old stereotype and all that. Like, oh, you're from the North, and you're that kind of deal. But yeah, I wondered how some slick talking dude from NYC is going to relate to. Yeah, Ames, Iowa, and Manhattan, Kansas, and, Waco, Texas, and all these other various places. And I think that, he's adapted really well, and business is just business. Business is the same language no matter where you're going, and he's very good at business and swinging deals. And I think that either his relationships or just his gut instinct, but I'd imagine it's a combination of both, told him several months back of, you got a real opportunity if you make a move right now. And had they gone a different route with somebody who doesn't have as many connections or doesn't have maybe as many TV connections and was more of a college athletics stereotype or somebody who's not super well connected in the areas of negotiations and TV deals, then maybe they are sitting on their butt still and watching,
bleed to death.
Yeah, I mean, basically bleeding a slow death because they didn't have the foresight to go, let's go jump and get a TV deal probably for less money early. Because at the time, that didn't make a lot of sense to people. And now it makes all the sense in the world of why that was a brilliant move, because otherwise they would be watching the Pac-12 sign up basically all the remaining TV spots, and they would still have another, 1 or 2 years before they even go to the table. And what in the world still left at that point?
Oh, it would almost as if they would have been almost mentally they would have been almost crippled if they would have gone old school.
With their options.
Well, and look, the reason Bob Bowlesby was effective at his job, I mean, there are other things, but the reason that he got that job and he was always, moving up as an athletic director, all that, he knew exactly how to speak the language of university presidents. The problem is that sometimes you need someone who does not speak the language of university presidents to tell them, like, I know what you think that the world is right now or should be, but we can't deal in should be. We have to deal in what is before we can deal in what we're going to do. And I think that's a lot of times when you run up against this. I think it's probably a lot that happens in the Pac-12 of, this is what college athletics should be. Well, that's great that you think
and there used to be 8-track tapes and typewriters, right?
The Big 12 had to make a move to go, okay, what's college athletics going to look like in a decade? Because it's changed, in the time just at the month that NIL happened and Texas and OU left, there have been 25 different changes, some major, some minor, that, in 1981, you would never even thought of it.
Rapid fire, blur.
Well, and speaking of that, I mean, we're all now awaiting this Pac-12 TV deal because that's going to answer a lot of questions in a lot of different areas, including the expansion piece. It'll do that, but while we do laud the timing of the decision by the Big 12 to move when they did, they're far from in the clear in the 5, 10-year, 20-year big picture. I mean, we still have certainly a lot of questions about what further movements there are going to be, because there's not a single person we've talked to or a single article I've written that says, oh, well, once the Pac-12 TV deal gets done, everybody's set and we're just going to go back to just normal everyday life in college athletics. Far from it. I mean, that's going to answer some questions, particularly about the Pac-12, which then leads to questions about the Big 12 and expansion and, what they're looking at. But still, there's a long fight to go. It's not like you signed a 20-year deal with ESPN and ABC and Fox and all of that. You got a deal for the next, what was the actual total? At 5 years for the Big 12?
5 years starting in 2024.
So, so you got that coming up right around the corner. But, beyond that, I think it's still as murky as it ever was. But at least you've got this next little wave at least looking a little clear, and that's what the Pac-12's aiming to now do as well.
Can we go back to the blunts and all that?
Sure, if you want to.
Filiberto Lujano, laugh out loud blunts. Beer smoker 4444. Blunts is very 90s smoke.
Yeah.
Clint Moses, it's called smoking a pinner.
Pinner?
A pinner. Bob Kramer, 365 doobie. Not a doobie. Smokey's doing, no, I'm not. Someone mentioned, who was it mentioned that blunt is even 70s? I don't think it was 70s.
I mean,
that's a doobie.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
there's plenty of names. It's not like it's limited to one per decade.
When you get off the show and you're gonna, what do you say? Who do you?
I say. Yeah.
Once a blunt, you all. It feels like I've had one after I just feel better.
Right. I do wonder how many of the states from the people in our chat room can go out and just find us out of the store.
Yeah.
We can't here. So, we could not walk into a local dispensary and be like, hello, marijuana salesman. What are the common nomenclatures from your products now?
By the way, someone mentioned Yorbark is a Komodo dragon. This location where we are, this beautiful building and this great studio on 101 Elm and MLK, and the MLK bridge is so much closer to being done. They're starting to lay a lot of what now is the surface. This area used to be a very rough neighborhood, and now you've got a couple of brand new beautiful hotels coming up. And so I'm just throwing it out there. You probably could have walked over here and got whatever you want. All right, retired stockbroker, how much for the Buddy Guy shirt? I'm betting the one I'm wearing. Is that what this is? I don't know. All right, when we come back, we've got a lot more to get to. Tomorrow, we're going to have Mack Rhodes, Baylor's Director of Athletics, normally Tuesday. This week, he is on Friday, and much more to get to as well. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist. He's where I go, whether it's for me to have hygienist with teeth cleaning or something more severe. And I have been inside of that building for a lot of things that have been severe. Root canals, a tooth pulled, emergency type work on it because I couldn't bite down on even a piece of bread. Something went wrong with a molar in the back right. Something went wrong with a molar on my top left. Part of me not taking care as much as I should with my dental work. And, of course, I'm not preaching to you. I'm telling you my story. And Dr. Steve Childress has got me where I need to be, focused on what it needs to be about, the little things every day to make sure you're taking care of your dental work. And then if you do need help, and you need a dentist to go to in the Waco area, Dr. Steve Childress is who I recommend. He is fabulous. Steve Childress, Dr. Steve Childress, and his great staff at Stonewood Dental.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel and Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel and Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel and Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
What are you waiting for? Next year's New Year's resolution to lose weight, get fit, start working out? 3, 2, 1, go to Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness. If you really want to get in shape, get rid of weight or inches, you have to make a commitment to work out, end the excuses of not enough time, you're too tired or too busy. There's a special place that will change your life at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive in Waco. And they have a commitment to you too. With personal trainers Christy London, Randall Corley, and Alex Bosch, state-of-the-art Cybex equipment, new weights and spin bikes, clean and spacious locker rooms, each with a whirlpool and sauna, and a staff that will know your name when you walk through the front door. Elite tennis facilities and a great tennis pro in Britt Coleman. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a place you can call home, a place you can work out on your own or with 40-plus group exercise classes. It's time for you to get in shape, lose inches, get fit at Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lake Shore Drive in Waco.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
This is 365 Sports. It's time for our weekly segment with Mickey Spagnola of DallasCowboys.com.
Prescott fires, caught, Lamb, touchdown.
Brought to you by the First National Bank of Central Texas, with 5 locations to serve you.
Mickey Spagnola, DallasCowboys.com, with us. Thursdays, there is never an off week or an off month in the NFL. Not everybody that watches us for a lot of college football content, but a lot of those college football players we saw last season getting ready for the combine and eventually the draft. Mickey joins us on 365 Sports. So, Mickey, let me ask you a question as far as maybe the way things are structured. Tony Pollard, if you, in fact, franchise tag him, go over again the timeline that sometimes I take for granted that I know about what that means. How much time after that do you have a chance to renegotiate it into a normal contract?
Yeah, so the franchise tag season opened on Tuesday. Teams have now 2 weeks. I think that takes us through March 7th to tag players. And then, the player has to sign the tag, but they have till, David, it's either mid-May or mid-June. I think it's June 15th to sign it or negotiate a long-term deal. So just because you tagged the player, and let's just, you had the thing on Pollard, just use him for an example. If the Cowboys tag him, that will guarantee him a 1-year, $10.1 million contract. Now, if he signs that, then, it's his. If he doesn't, teams can pull the tag between now and that June 15th deadline. But you have the right to negotiate with him on a long-term deal. And that's what teams really want to do. So sometimes you sign the guy and you say, okay, we just need more time to negotiate an equitable long-term deal. If you don't and they sign the tag, then they're guaranteed that money that is guaranteed on the tag, but it's only a 1-year deal and there's no signing bonus. So sort of like the rest of us, they got to get paid week to week.
Mickey, they're in kind of an interesting spot with the running back position overall, in that as you head into a draft that's got some guys that you can pick up, probably especially in the middle rounds, that could be effective NFL running backs, and that's been kind of the norm across the league. Tony Pollard is somebody who, had he not gotten hurt in that last game, it would be a no-brainer that they were going to probably give him a long-term deal and all that. But are they in kind of a unique position where they can give him this deal? Maybe he plays on the franchise tag. They can see how he bounces back from the injury and draft a running back to play with him?
Well, yeah, that's a possibility. But again, and you brought up an interesting point there that makes this complicated. Is he the same guy? Mm-hmm. After the injury, after he has surgery, after he has to allow time to have 2 fractured bones in his lower leg heal. It's safer to do a 1-year deal, but you're gambling $10 million, right, of salary. And it's not the money, it's the salary cap money that counts. So that's a difficult thing. And I'm sure his agent wants to kind of try to figure out what market value is for a guy like him that has never been a full-time running back in his entire football career, maybe high school, but certainly not in college and certainly not here. What's the market value for that guy? Because everybody assumes, since they see what he does, that, oh, boy, just give him 10 more carries a game and look what he's going to produce. Well, sometimes more carries means diminishing returns. So you got to be careful with that one. And you also have to be careful with, so how good is he 5 yards in, 2 yards in? Ezekiel Elliott was pretty darn good on those 3rd and goals from the 1. And it's not a guarantee that you're getting in. So there's that factor. So to me, I think it's difficult to try to figure out what his market value is on a long-term deal. So the other thing players have to, and not to get too complicated here, have to try to figure out is it worth playing on a 1-year deal and I take the chance of getting hurt and maybe suffering an injury that's going to shorten my career, or am I better off taking less money but getting guaranteed money over 3 years? And my guarantee is maybe 1.5 times of what that 1-year salary is. Think about Dak, how fortunate Dak was, because he rolled the dice on passing up like $48 million guaranteed to play on that 1-year tag, and then he gets hurt. Well, what if that injury was a career ending and he passed up $30 million? So there's a little bit of a gamble there on both sides when it comes down to these types of things.
Man, it must suck then for Tony Pollard, excuse my language, but here you are about to enter what could be free agency, even with the tag and whatever else, and then you suffer that injury.
Oh, no, absolutely, David. The timing couldn't have been worse, because the last thing you want to do is go into free agency and not be able to market yourself, right? Not be able to go to a team and say, okay, look what I can do, or tell them I'm ready for training camp. He might not be ready for training camp, Same thing. Well, let's take 2 other ones. Anthony Brown. Anthony Brown's a good cornerback, right? He's going to turn 30 this coming season, and he's coming off a torn Achilles. That's no time to go into free agency, right?
Yeah.
So in his case, he's probably got to think, okay, if I stay here with the Cowboys, 1 year kind of prove it deal that I'm healthy enough to play, then I could market myself in free agency. But he's in the same case. You remember Malik Hooker, when the Cowboys signed him, he was coming off a torn Achilles, and he basically signed for a 1-year minimum deal and tried to prove himself, and he did, and the Cowboys re-signed him to 2 years, gave him a little bit of a bump. But for a cornerback, that just puts him in a precarious situation. And even Terrence Steele as a restricted free agent, you know, you try to have your agent market you and see what the market value is on a potential long-term deal. But here he is coming off a torn ACL in December. Well, chances are he might be ready to play by the start of the season, but you can't go in and ask somebody for a 3-year, $30 million deal, not knowing if the guy can play the first year. So those types of things really hurt players, and why guys going into the last year of their contract, if they are top-notch players, they want an extension, right? They don't want to play on that last year of a contract because something like this could happen to you and ruin you financially for the rest of your life.
Mickey, if we're reading the tea leaves now, come June 1st, or, you know, because that's the day, I know that you can designate somebody a post June 1st cut and cut them on April 4th, but are Tyron Smith and Zeke Elliott Cowboys?
Well, you can't designate. I don't think you can designate both guys June 1. Now, there used to be just one. Maybe you can do two now. Well, if they do that, you got to remember there's dead money going into the salary cap, and that's what everybody forgets. And let's just take Zeke. They cut him March 16th. They save on his base salary, which is $10.9 million, but they'll have $11.86 go into the salary cap in dead money. And even if they do it on June 1, then it's 5.8 this year and 6 next year. And the same thing with Tyron Smith. Cut him, and it's $8 million against the cap. His base salary is $13.6. So you got to try, I think, with guys like that to maybe guarantee them some money, because neither one of them have any more guaranteed money in their contract, and guarantee them on a 2-year basis maybe, and say, okay, you know, you don't have any guarantee, but I'm going to guarantee you this, but you're going to make less money. And I think if you're that point in your career, you say, I'll take the guarantee more so than, you know, trying to go into free agency and make more money.
Well, particularly with Tyron Smith, I mean, Zeke, I think, is a different conversation. But with Tyron Smith, and even though he hasn't made it through a full season healthy, you just talked about Terrence Steele. Like, they might need to piece that together for a little while, and getting rid of him might, while seemingly cap conscious to a lot of people, might not be the smartest thing they can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're banking your decisions on projections, right? And not every medical projection is just solely accurate, and everybody's not the same coming back from, you know, the same injury. So, yeah, what if you say, wow, we don't need Tyron Smith, and then Terrence Steele's not ready to go? Well, what are you doing at right tackle or left tackle, whatever, where there's going to be a hole? And then the same thing at running back. What if Pollard's not ready? Now, you want to spend a first-round pick on a running back? Okay, fine, go ahead. But who's the second guy if Zeke's not there? Malik Davis? You know, okay, maybe, but you're sitting there and you're hoping. But again, there is a salary cap, and that's why these decisions become so complicated at this time of year.
Mickey, one other question, and we appreciate your time. We didn't get a chance to discuss this with you during the week of the Super Bowl. We have John McClain on quite a bit, like we have you on, and he's the one that went to bat for Chuck Howley back a few weeks ago. And, of course, Howley gets into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I know that he's kind of where he is right now at his age of 86, but his son was able to get on stage. Your thoughts? You have the historical perspective of the Cowboys, not just now, not even just 25 years ago, but overall. What do you think that means to Chuck Howley?
I just hope he understands it, David, that he understands that he's going into the Hall of Fame, because this is something think about this. He was eligible for induction to the Hall of Fame in 1978.
Mm-hmm.
If my math is right, that's like 46 years he's been waiting for this. And talking to Scott, and I've got to know Scott a little bit during this process, you know, his dad really, really wanted this. And he deserved it. That was the worst part. It wasn't like he was some fringe player. This guy was really good. And to me, and I know you've heard me say this before, maybe somebody listening, this will be new, but the job of the Pro Football Hall of Fame is to preserve the stories, preserve history, right? And this guy was an historical player, the only player in Super Bowl history to win MVP on the losing team. I think that's worth preserving. And for some reason, he fell through the cracks. And you know what? I got to know when I got here a lot of the former guys that covered the Cowboys, the old timers. I guess I'm one of those now. And I would ask them who should be the next guy off of those teams to get in the Hall of Fame. And universally, it was Chuck Hawley. But for some reason, no one wanted to recognize the career this guy had. And it's just a shame. And what I hate is it takes so long to get some of these guys in that they're so old and they're in the situation that Holly's in right now, the late stages of dementia, that I don't know if they can appreciate it, if they know it. Scott doesn't think that physically he'll be capable to take part in the ceremony. And he was worried about it. And I remember Bob Hayes. Bob Hayes finally got in after all those years, right? The only guy in NFL history to win an Olympic gold medal and a Super Bowl. The only guy. And he didn't get in until after he passed away.
Mm-hmm.
So what good is that, right? Okay, you preserved the story, but you didn't get this guy to absorb the honor of being inducted, right? And this has happened too many times. So you mentioned John McClain, and I don't know if Scott told you the story, because I asked him, I said, so do you think he understands that he's in? And he goes, the only thing I can bank on is that when John came to tell him, knocked on the door and told him that he was a finalist, and tried to explain that when you're a finalist on the seniors committee, normally you get in, you're in the Hall of Fame. And Scott said, I just don't think my dad was understanding. He said, so I left, and his caregiver, who's been with him for the last several years, I think he's sort of the whisperer, like they get there with each other all day long. And he started trying to explain to Chuck what was going on. And Scott said about a half hour later, I got a call from his caregiver, and he said, I was explaining this all to him, telling him what it was about. And he said, finally, his eyes lit up. He looked at me and said, guess I better get a new suit.
Yeah, good. That's great.
So maybe it sunk in. But that's the sad – it's like a bittersweet thing, right? Great he's in, but too bad that he's just not quite there in his life to be able to appreciate it.
Mickey, thank you. We appreciate you. Mickey Spagnola, Thursdays with us, DallasCowboys.com. And wanted to bring in that Chuck Howley story, a part of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. When we come back, Craig, with quite a bit and off the radar. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr Motors, they are the people that you can count on right now. Dozens of Sierra trucks on the lot, and right now qualified buyers can save thousands on new 2023 GMC Sierra SLT 1500s. Or get 2.9% financing on new 2023 GMC Sierra trucks. See dealer for more details. And if you're looking for trucks, there's one of the offers they have. You're looking for SUVs. How about luxury without the luxury price tag? You can experience the smooth and quiet ride of 2023 Buick Envisions. Get lease payments with $5,000 down cash or trade at $269 per month, or save thousands on a new purchase. And I know the numbers can get kind of confusing. Just hear a lot of numbers being thrown at you from all different directions. Well, they have great customer service. That's one thing that doesn't change numerically at all. But you can always go over to their website, richardcarr.com, to see these various specials and kind of pour through them, dive into what exactly is being offered. But they got offers on SUVs. They've got offers on trucks. And maybe you're not even looking to buy new. Well, they've got an offer there for you, as well as they've got a lot full of pre-owned cars and trucks in stock, many of them under $20,000. They're affordable, thoroughly inspected, ready to finance for almost any credit rating. Richard Carr has quality vehicles, both new and pre-owned, ready to drive today. And when you go on over to the website, whether it's to set an appointment or whether it's to look at all these various deals, various financing, one of the things you might do over there is just set your car up that the car you already have. You're not looking to buy necessarily, but the one that you do have, the one you enjoy driving, needs some repair. Well, they can take care of that over at richardcarr.com and Richard Carr Motors as well. Head on over to the website where their award-winning service department is standing by to get you an appointment and then to follow through and do what they can to keep you on the road. So again, go to richardcarr.com to see their service specials and set an appointment for a quick and reliable repair. So whatever you're looking for, buying new, buying pre-owned, just getting your car fixed up, Richard Carr is the place that you can count on for over 23 years now in Central Texas. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Y'all listen up. Let me tell you something about group meals from Rudy's Barbecue. It's got all you need for all the folks you gotta feed, smoked meat, sides, and more. There's everything down to the tablecloth, just like the one that you see at the store. At a bridal shower, it's better than flowers. In a long business meeting, it'll pass the hours. It'll feed all the cousins at a family function. It's better than potluck at a church luncheon. Next time you need to feed 10 or more, call and order a Rudy's group meal.
Next in line.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome back into 365 Sports. Time for Off the Radar. For those just joining us, every Tuesday and Thursday at around 4:45, which a little past that today. That's all right, though. We will take a look at just a grab bag of stories, and it all just sort of depends on what's going on in the world of sports as to what we will talk about. But we'll sprinkle in some college football as it's pertinent. And I did feel like there was a story that maybe we wouldn't get to. It's not a huge deal by any means, but it's college football and draft related. I was just thinking about, even before I saw this story earlier today, of, all the draft talk that we have now and the big debate that's going on about, who will go number one overall. Will it be a quarterback? Will it be, somebody other than a quarterback, which is quite possible. I mean, depending on what mock draft that you're looking at. But in terms of next year, which I know is a very long way away. We still have, 3 months until this upcoming draft, much less, add another 12 for the following draft. But can y'all even imagine of how much buzz there will be around Caleb Williams?
Oh, it's going to be nuts.
I mean, him as a draft prospect, I mean, he could leave right now and probably, be right there and would be, not probably, but would be right there in that discussion already. So much less after another year of college ball. The reigning Heisman Trophy winner. It'll be amazing to see what kind of a buildup there is. And got a little bit of a flirtation when talking about, Caleb Williams and the draft is, there's already talk about, where he's going to go and if he'll be a number one overall guy. But he was interviewed by People magazine prior to the Super Bowl. And he actually did something that not many prospects do. This is something that's kind of an annoyance from a reporter standpoint, but because of annoying reporters, I understand why it's this way. You can't just ask a guy at Pro Day or a draft prospect of what their favorite team was anymore. I mean, you can, and maybe sometimes you'll get an answer, but you guys know this. You ask somebody like, who'd you grow up rooting for, and they're like hesitant to say anything. It's almost like they don't want to tick off a fan base that they might have to go and play for. And it's really not that big of a deal. No. So it was refreshing when Caleb Williams was asked, where would you like to play or where could you see yourself? And he just answered the question. And I thought that was of note. He said, I like to be around younger coaches. I'd probably go to the Dolphins. I would also be able to play with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Mike Gesicki. The defense isn't bad. That's probably my number one spot. Now, of course, Miami has Tua already at the helm there. He had a pretty good season last year, and he's only been in the league for 2 years now at this point. So that would be kind of a hard spot to finagle himself into. But Williams said the expectation from everybody would be that I would leave and go pro, but that would be a very, very in-the-moment kind of decision after speaking to family members and mentors that I believe in and trust their word. He said he'll play anywhere but does favor the West Coast, and that would mean also, teams like the 49ers, who do not have a settled quarterback by any means. The Raiders, obviously, although they could here soon with Aaron Rodgers if it comes down to that. But I like that he's just being honest about it. Like, I'd rather play on the West Coast. If I had my pick, I'd play for the Miami Dolphins because of this reason and that reason. But, I mean, his draft buildup is going to be absolutely insane. And first, as college football fans, we get to embrace him and enjoy him for one more year, pretty much guaranteed. I know he's saying the business about he's going pro after next year, let's face that. But what do you guys think, Caleb Williams?
I find people with candor refreshing, even if I don't like what they say, sometimes. And so, I'm not nuts about the fingernail thing, but that's his thing and not mine. So I'm not going to let it. Yeah.
I'm not what's interesting about that, though, and I'm not, and keep going, but I didn't realize he'd been doing that throughout the year.
Yeah, he didn't do it like, again, it will never keep me up at night, and it would never make me mad or anything like that in general. But I like what he's saying. He is wrong about one thing, though. Mike Gesicki will not be with the Dolphins after this year. I think that I think he's a walk year, and it just doesn't really fit the offense all that well, which is kind of surprising given George Kittle in San Francisco, and that's the offense that they're running in Miami. But, yeah, I think that would be, Caleb Williams look, there's only one Patrick Mahomes, but if you watch the style of play, just like there was one Jordan, Michael Jordan, people started, you mentioned this the other day, Craig, about the up and under layup he had against the Lakers was like unbelievable then, and now everybody does that. Right. Well, everybody does that because after we all saw it, everybody went out in the yard and in the driveway and was trying to do it. So
I didn't have the airtime for it.
Yeah, exactly. So,
time.
But yeah, me either. But people who could now said, hey, maybe I can try this. Kind of like Patrick Mahomes and maybe the next generation of quarterbacks that he is going to inspire of guys who are athletic, like Caleb Williams, who can just make things happen on the move and from, every kind of different arm angle. So, yeah, I do think that while there's going to be a little bit of a mad dash to the top to maybe draft Bryce Young before the Texans can get him, but maybe the Colts or the Panthers or even the Raiders, depending on what happens with their quarterback situation, can offer a bunch of picks to the Bears to get that done. I do think that next year, you want to talk about mad dash, there are teams with established quarterbacks right now that might be like, might be the end for this guy. We're going to go get Caleb Williams.
I think Caleb Williams alone is going to be a major part of this draft upcoming class, like you're saying. I think that it'll be interesting to see who goes like, we're going to go grab our quarterback right now, and which of those lower-level teams maybe are like, let's just suck it up for another year and let's go get Caleb Williams. And you can't guarantee that you'd land the number 1 overall pick. As we've seen, there's as much of a fight for trying to lose to get to that point as there is for trying to make the playoffs sometimes, it feels like. But, yeah, he put it out there. He'd like to play in Miami or play on the West Coast. But you mentioned Mike Gesicki. People are just so observant online. Like, they noticed Tyreek Hill liked a tweet that mentioned Caleb Williams' comments because, of course, he was mentioned in there as well. Mike Gesicki actually had a response because, as you mentioned, he probably won't be there by the time Caleb Williams gets there because he's a free agent. And he actually said, Caleb, they tell you I'm staying with the Dolphins through 2024. I'm just trying to figure out what I should do with my condo lease. So, yeah, he's having fun with it. But Caleb Williams just going on record to People Magazine about where he would like to play. And it will be insane when the buildup starts for him in the NFL draft next year.
I'm bringing this up without any idea if I have information, but I thought I was listening to an interview at the Super Bowl. Did the Cowboys I know Kellen Moore's gone. So who's their offensive coordinator?
Brian Schottenheimer.
Okay. How was he at USC?
Brian Schottenheimer at some point,
the Cowboys
maybe.
hired somebody who actually, I know Lincoln Riley was the head coach, offensive coordinator for USC, but someone the Cowboys just hired was almost like a quarterback caddy for Caleb Williams, I think, at USC.
Yeah, I don't think it was. Brian Schottenheimer's been in the NFL for a long time.
I know who he is. I know his father.
Will Harriger.
Yes, that's him. How do you spell his last name, Craig?
Harriger. Okay. You just Google Cowboys USC.
He was apparently, based on this NFL ad, I was listening, was very instrumental in the Caleb Williams from where he was at Oklahoma to who he was last year at USC, which was great to greater, or really, really good to great. And he's now on the Cowboys staff.
Well, that's wonderful. We get Caleb Williams Cowboys discussion going.
That's not going to happen unless the Cowboys are.
No, but, I just wanted
but that will now inevitably happen. That will now inevitably happen.
Oh,
there
absolutely.
will be. Well, the Cowboys. That's an interesting connection. I didn't realize that at all. But now that you mentioned that will sprout legs, Paul, as you know amongst Cowboys
if you
fans.
put Caleb Williams in a Cowboys logo, it'll be the talk for 3 months. But I just wanted to throw it in there.
All right, let's see here. Man, there's a couple of stories that just came down right in front of me. How about this? I'll take this aside direction real quick. Dennis Dodd, Arizona State's Ray Anderson, tells Arizona Sports the new Pac-12 TV deal, quote, may not be the projections originally contemplated, but it will be a solid enough financial situation to keep this conference together.
There you go.
Okay, good to hear that. He's, of course, the AD. Good. Good. If that, in fact, is enough to keep them together, that's checklist, move on. We'll see what else goes through there.
I do think that everybody not named the Big Ten and the SEC needs to start now planning for what 5 years, like having contingencies for what 5 years from now is going to look like. Everything goes well. And I do think that you might see, maybe not after the first 12-team playoff, but after the second one, some moves probably, some people scurrying a little bit to figure out how do you maximize better what you're doing there. Because the first one might be kind of a, well, it's the first one. But when you see the second one, you start to see what the trends are, what the reasons are, what this team didn't schedule this. Then you'll start to see teams going, well, we got to do this and this and that to get to the top 12. So, but yeah, if this is going to happen, if the Pac-12 TV deal is going to happen like this hopefully does, so we can kind of move on from this because it's getting exhausting.
It's fun and it's interesting. I think the excitement is not even so much the death of a conference as it is what sort of possibilities that opens up, right? What could your conference then pick up, or how does that affect, the move to whatever college football looks like in 5 years? If you're suddenly just dismantling a place that's got, an automatic playoff bid and, is a part of the Power Five, which I know is looking shaky as far as that moniker goes. There's some splinter effects. So if everything stays whole, well, then that changes some things. But to your point, this is, if that rings true, and I have no reason to believe Ray Anderson's lying when he says that, if that keeps them together, it keeps them together for the next few years. And then, yes, there is going to be this next iteration of whatever, college sports is going to look like. So, but yeah, that just came down. I do find may not be the projections originally contemplated, but will be solid enough financial situation to keep this conference together. It makes you wonder, and we'll learn soon enough of what exactly he means by that comment, and where they are financially in the grand scheme of things. A couple more notes. Bobby Wagner has agreed with the Rams to mutually part ways. 9-time All-Pro. Just last March, he had signed a 5-year, $50 million deal. Just saw Jalen Ramsey commenting on playing with Bobby Wagner and now going their separate ways. But, the Rams built it up, right, to go win a Super Bowl, and they did. And then this past year was a bit of not so good. And so now another piece of their championship run is moving on. So Bobby Wagner mutually agreeing to part ways with the Los Angeles Rams. Also, let's see here. Coming up this weekend will be week 2 of the XFL. I don't know how many people watch the debut weekend, but I usually dabble a little bit in TV ratings here. The third go-around, obviously, for the XFL. And they had, typical opening weekend. I don't think there was a ton of highlights that really went viral or anything. It seemed like the people who checked it out, some of them enjoyed it, some of them didn't. But they did see a massive decline from the last time we saw them on opening day 3 years ago. A 50% decline in viewership from the equivalent windows of XFL 2.0 3 years ago. The first game, the inaugural game, which was Arlington and Vegas, which was also on ABC on a Saturday afternoon, averaged 1.54 million viewers, which is down 54% from the inaugural game on the very same platform just 3 years prior. That had drawn 3.3 million, but that also didn't include the, as Sports Media Watch points out, the out-of-home viewing. So that was probably bigger than 3.3, so a pretty big drop. Viewership, according to Sports Media Watch, also trailed the inaugural games of the USFL last year, which drew 3+, and the 2019 Alliance of American Football. Y'all remember the AAF?
Oh, yeah.
That also drew 3.25 million back in 2019, so a pretty significant drop, not only from when we last saw the XFL, but even to some similar leagues here in the last couple of years. St. Louis, San Antonio on Sunday was the most watched game of opening weekend, 1.57 million, down 54% from that equivalent window on Fox just 3 years ago. Also declined in viewership from the first Sunday afternoon USFL game in comparison that aired on ABC. So, not exactly the banner opening weekend that you hope for, and in fact, a dramatic drop in viewers compared to similar showings. And there's obviously a little bit of differences here and there as far as the networks and all of that. But how much did you guys ultimately take in, if any at all, from the XFL? And did anything that maybe you saw on Twitter entice you to even check it out? Or is this like a non-factor in basically your sports life?
I'll watch it a little bit. What I will say, and I'll mention it again in the top 5 actually coming up, the way that they're doing instant replay is brilliant. It is fantastic.
How are they doing it? Because I haven't watched.
It's Dean Blandino in the command center. And he is talking to the ref, and you can hear the ref talking back. He's watching it, and he's like, I've got a catch with a foot down at the 45-yard line on the right hash, and it's done. It less than 5 minutes. I mean, it's right away. He just looks at it, tells him it's a catch. It's at the 45, right hash.
Did he look at the Dez catch while he was in the replay booth?
But it is the best. Like, everybody's got to start doing it that way.
Well,
it's the best way to do it. And again, the ref's not sitting there looking at the monitor, having it explained to him.
And I've wanted to ask it. What if there's a glare? I know they have the hood and all that.
Well, that's also been a problem. It's the equipment in different places is stored differently. Maybe you can't see it as well, and they're sitting there looking at it.
For show? Just eye in the sky.
Tell
catch,
someone what
fumble,
it is done.
Touchdown,
So it's great.
Knee down, whatever.
That thank you to The Rock. We need to bring that all the way around.
Well, if it's like last time, then there will be these innovations. They'll fold, and then the NFL will take the ones that they like the best, and they'll improve the product that way. I mean, that's basically how it happened the last time. And we'll see how ratings shape up in week 2, but I want to acknowledge that because, I mean, that ultimately does play into, the lasting power of these leagues. They're not in danger like last time of, I don't even know how many weeks they got in and the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
That was what cursed them the last time. But, the first time around, it was a big old mess. So not the biggest, most banner week for week 1 of the XFL, but we'll see how they do the rest of this season. And just a couple more notes. Speaking of ratings, NBA All-Star Game, smallest audience on record, averaged a combined 2.2 rating. But here's what's amazing about it. I was talking about the XFL, and it's like they had a little over 1 million. The lowest All-Star Game on record for the NBA still drew 4.5 million viewers. So even if it's not that great, it's still better than a lot of other products on TV. That was across both TNT and TBS. Lowest rated, least watched All-Star Game ever. Previous lows were in 2022 and 2021. So they're on a little bit of a streak here as far as the All-Star Game goes. And this is why every year there's, no matter if it's the Pro Bowl or if it's the MLB All-Star Game, this is not a league thing. This is a All-Star Game thing. But yeah, you're posting, your worst 3 years of viewing for this game in a row. And we know other leagues have struggled with it as well. I mean, they do point out, Steph Curry wasn't playing. Giannis was not playing the entire games. LeBron didn't play, all that much. So there were some factors, but, makes you wonder if the NBA will go to the drawing board and they, too, try to figure out how to spice this thing up a little bit.
All right, this is from my perspective. I used to never miss All-Star games. And I don't know if this is just because of me, and I'm not a get-off-my-lawn guy, although I can be. I think the All-Star games are fun to watch, defense or not, whatever sport it is. They have gotten to, they've almost,
playful.
It's gotten to the point where it's more about who's the band, who's playing live, who is singing, all the it's too much for me.
Okay. It's also, I think, a generational thing with this group of players. The Michael Jordan generation, those guys just like to compete, even though they knew the All-Star Game, look, we're not going to play defense that hard, but it was about me beating you any chance I got. That was what it was about. And so I think that's a little bit different now because, again, of all the things you've mentioned, the whole thing is more of a spectacle. And the only game, like the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, for all of its faults, with baseball, they don't dog it.
But once the game starts, is it a production like it is with the All-Star?
No, it's not. But, that's why I'm trying to give credit to I guess it's just the sport of baseball. You can dog it and not play defense, in the NBA All-Star Game and get through the 40 minutes and move on, or 48 minutes and move on with your life. You can't, they just can't decide we're just going to throw melon balls and not catch fly balls. Otherwise, the game will be forever.
And you're pitching. You're not going to but you're going to try to strike the guy out.
Yeah,
you're going to try to throw one past him. You're a hitter. You want to get a hit.
It's better because of the nature of the game. You just have to get it.
Yeah, I just think it's gotten so Academy Award-ish.
Yes.
Even for example, a show that I used to like, and for other reasons I don't watch it as much, if at all. I don't even know when it's on anymore. I think it's the All-Star Week in baseball. Is just it's gotten to so Hollywood. And maybe that's the stretch. That's where people are. And I don't know, but 3 years in a row of lower ratings, there's a trend right there.
I mean, like I said, though, they still drew 4.5 million viewers. So, I mean, it's not totally all bad news. Not like they're going to cancel a thing. I think it's just, like I said, and I don't even know if it's the Hollywood thing. I mean, if you're these players too, like, why do you care? Why are you going to go out there and play your absolute hardest in the All-Star game and risk getting injured? I mean, there has to be benefits both ways. And so, they treat it like Hollywood because they're all there to party it up during the week and enjoy the live music and be with their buddies and play a pickup game, basically, with All-Star players. So, I mean, to each their own on the All-Star festivities. It's just a common trend around sports now where those types of events, whether it be MLB, I mean, the NFL, they reimagined the Pro Bowl this past year and changed that up. So it's just there's not a large desire, it seems like, as popular as sports is for the all-star formats in general, but it still draws far better viewership than most other things out there. But I'm sure that is something that they will look at. And the final note today comes from the Washington Post, as there was a report that Jeff Bezos has hired an investment firm that will further investigate whether or not he will submit a bid to buy the Commanders. That, again, comes from the Washington Post. Who owns the Washington Post?
He does.
He does. So pretty good sources there probably. But, yes, he has hired an investment firm to further investigate whether or not to actually submit a bid. That is the latest chapter in the potential change in ownership for the Washington Commanders franchise, and he's long been rumored to get into the sports, NFL ownership game, with the Commanders being an ideal target just because it makes a lot of sense for both parties. But one step closer, it appears, but not a guarantee by any means. So we'll see. Those are a few things off the radar.
Thank you very much, Craig. It doesn't ensure that he's going to do it any better. But you can't do it much worse than what Snyder's done the last 20-plus years.
No, I do worry what the stadium's going to look like from the air, though, based on the rocket ship.
Yeah. Bezos?
Yeah. If he builds a new stadium, I'm worried about the shapes because people can get things by this guy.
Oh, okay.
This guy's been taking trips to moon in a big wiener.
Yeah, he has. Yeah, that's a guy with money to burn, so whatever he decides to do, he will have.
Blue Origin. Just look up Blue Origin.
Blue Origin rocket ship. But, Bezos one step closer potentially, although not a guarantee still that he will be in ownership. But, yeah, that's very phallic-shaped rocket ship. Yeah, that's interesting design there from the Jeff Bezos team.
Hey, God bless him.
Yeah.
All right.
I kind of think. I
thought you were talking like a hot dog or something.
No, I think that the designers of that ship said, "Okay, buddy, you want to go to space?"
Hey, the moon's
I think they used to draw cartoons for Disney.
The moon and Mars and Mercury up there going, "Please come get me." Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, Craig. We appreciate it. A couple of college football notes to come back to, and one including Michigan running back Blake Corum and Georgia. Since they've had this run, and this seems to be not always. But when you get to a point of elite, like national championship elite in college football, doesn't mean you can't have problems for teams that are 5-7 too. But they've got a linebacker now that's kind of been sideways with the law. We'll get into that and much more. This is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza, unlimited medium one-topping pizzas online right now. Use the code MED. MED for medium, MED $6.99, and that's how much the one-topping pizza can be. Extra large two-topping pizzas, $13.99 each. Order now, and the code is HD1614. Go online to marcos.com for these pizzas. Pepperonis, Magnifico. Use PepMag as the code word for $9.99. $3 off large specialty pizzas. Code word is special 3. 2 medium one-topping pizzas. Cheesy bread and 2 liters of a drink for $21.99. Pizza bowls, salads, sandwiches, and more. 5 locations in the Waco area: Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Hewitt, and Woodway. Bob Mock, the owner. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
During the President's Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco, get a 2022 Ram 1500 Quad Cab with 0% for 72 months or Ram 1500 Crew Cab with 1.9% for 72 months on all trim levels, only while supplies last.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones Investments and financial advisor Chuck Verno, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Polo Bear, this show is amazing today. Polo, we've kind of got off on a few tangents. I'm trying to keep Craig and Paul in line here today, and it's a chore. These young kids of America today. Polo Bear, LMAO, Bobby B. You guys have blank envy on Bezos and his rocket ship. Okay,
my man. I don't envy the rocket ship. I envy his wallet. But
yeah, definitely envy his wallet. Definitely envy the wallet.
All right, this is...
but yeah, I'd never seen the rocket ship till Paul pointed that out, so...
Boy, you sure have been looking at it a lot.
Well, you know, you dress for the job you want.
Michigan's Jim Harbaugh, Blake Corum to miss spring practice to rehab the knee. He got hurt at the end of the year, missed the game against Ohio State, missed their semifinal game. Heck of a player, very much in the Heisman Trophy run, injured against Illinois back in mid-November, finished with 1,463 yards, 18 touchdowns. Statistically or not, he was one of the dominant players in college football, but missed the Big Ten title game. And then also, as I mentioned, the loss to TCU. So that's part of, he will not be a part of spring. I wouldn't want him to be a part of spring, even if he was healthy.
That's not a big deal. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stars that aren't going to participate in spring or will do so to lesser extents than they, the rest of their teammates. So, yeah, coming off an injury, I mean, that was to be expected.
Georgia's Jamin Dumas Johnson arrested on 2 driving charges. I don't know if you guys heard about this. And this is getting to be a thing that he was arrested Wednesday on misdemeanor charges of racing on highways/streets reckless driving. Apparently, January 10th, the day after Georgia hammered TCU. In a statement Wednesday evening, Georgia saying that it did not mention Dumas Johnson specifically, but said, we are aware of a report. What it was is apparently they were drag racing right down the street, some neighborhood. The alleged conduct does not reflect our program's high values. This is an open matter involving a student, whatever else. The log showing that Dumas Johnson and someone else were going, two vehicles traveling next to each other on College Station Road in a reckless manner with high speeds that fled the area upon the sign of an officer. I bet they did.
You sure you're pronouncing Dumas right? I feel like we haven't had a lot of police blotter stories in college sports. I mean, now we've suddenly this week, there's like a major all-timer of one with Alabama basketball. But it feels like a few years ago, it was like, I mean, remember there was like the Fulmer Cup?
Yeah.
Where it tracked, all of the off-the-field incidents that schools had, and there's like a Fulmer Cup champion on like who had the most arrests in an off-season and all that. And I don't know, at some point we got away from a lot of the police blotter stuff, and I don't know exactly why, but it feels like that's sort of coming back, like this, a racing arrest and things like that. But I mean, stupid decision, and he's not going to get booted off the team or anything. But yeah, I'm sure Kirby Smart's not too happy about this.
Didn't Georgia just have somebody die
in a car accident?
Yeah, they had
a car
terrible
accident. Yeah, they had the person who's a part of the program driving a car with another player got in an accident. Is that right? So that's just, I have always said this, though, and this doesn't mean it's 100% correct. It's not perfect, but you have a football team, 85 scholarship players and whoever else walk-ons that some of them make it or earn scholarship. It is hard to not have knuckleheads, and in some cases, guys who are right on the edge, and you almost need that. Doesn't mean you have to have it, but, I mean, for example, my favorite program of all time that's been a shell of themselves, Nebraska in the 90s. I mean, we don't have to just mention Lawrence Phillips. They also had Tyrone Williams and Jason. They had guys getting in trouble. And I wonder if you almost need, you hope not, but you almost need players who are so far on the edge that you're also risking these type of stories happening.
Absolutely not. Georgia, I mean, that to go back to that, I'd already forgotten about that, quite frankly. Not forgotten about it, but it was, we've I was going to say we moved on. I don't want it to sound that way, though, but that was recently, but there's been so many other stories. But yeah, circling back to that Georgia story now actually in my head's a lot bigger, being reckless in a vehicle because, offensive lineman Devin Willock and recruiting staff member Chandler LaCroix, who was driving in that car, both died in that accident not that long ago. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that does provide a bit more background and perspective to a Georgia-related, reckless behavior in a vehicle arrest. It's not just as simple as if that was the only thing going on. So yeah, that's a worse look than I originally thought because of that happening recently. So again, probably going to handle that internally, and he'll do what he does. But Kirby Smart will handle that how he needs to. But yeah, you got to be smarter than that, especially for a program that just dealt with something involving a vehicle. That was
is it Ra Thomas, Paul, the receiver? Had and listen, this is not about Georgia. Just like with Miller is not about Alabama, there are going to be stories like this. And by God, we've had to cover them here over the years at times with Waco and Baylor. But it just seems like it kind of is a little bit of a run. And guys also start to feel a little bit like better than they really need to at times, and they start to push the envelope a little bit. Listen, I'm not the safest driver, all right?
No.
All right, so I'm not saying I haven't, at times been competitive on a highway.
All right, get to the point.
No, my point is I'm not trying to point the finger so much, but after what happened earlier this year, that kind of was something you'd rather not see.
It does, and part of it also is, and you see this with teams who win the national championship and are a big deal in their especially in their little bubble that they are in the university. There are guys who just kind of enjoy that a little bit more and start to, feel like you're a little invincible or that you are, because you're just, everything's been great since you won the title, and everywhere you go, people, are just thrilled to see you. And now you throw in the fact that you don't even have to hide the money that you're getting like you did before under the table, and you can use this to make money. Like, people are trying to build social media personas and all this. It can get out of hand, especially for people who aren't mature enough to handle it. And, most people in their 20s are at best, 75% as mature as they're going to be. That's the most mature 22-year-old. It's like, that guy's pretty mature, but he also could probably get talked into, ditching work on a Wednesday to go, drink beer with his friends. But you've got these guys, and they feel, on top of the world.
Invincible.
And so they do things like this.
Even if you don't play football and you don't have NIL money coming in, just in general, 20, 21, 22-year-olds feel pretty invincible, So I think that's an age thing. But, yeah, you add some of that other stuff to the mix, whether it's, confidence or money or whatever, and I'm sure that doesn't better your chances of avoiding situations like that. But I just think, that's really unfortunate. And, I'm kind of stuck on the previous Georgia story and how bad that was. But, yeah, just got to be smarter than that. And to answer your question about, like, having that edge, as some people would put it, I think it's a fine line you walk. And if you don't have the culture in place, you bring those edgy guys in and you see what happens. It could turn out really, really badly. It could turn out to where it basically destroys your program if you're not careful. You get too much edge. So I think a lot of it falls on the shoulders of the coaches and staff members to – maybe get a guy who's, not necessarily, how do you describe it? The most cookie cutter type of guy in the world. Like, there's a little something to him that you got to sort of watch that thin line that he walks. But that's the job of those coaches to keep those guys in line and to build them up as young men and young women to not make those dumb mistakes. But still, no matter what you do, there's still going to be young people who make mistakes, and that's just part of life. And unfortunately, we have stories like that pop up too often, but, hopefully they don't pop up too much more often coming up here, because we've had our share here as of late.
So we'll have Paul's Top 5 here momentarily. Don't forget tonight, 10:30. Sports Tonight on the CW. Today I was at a dealership for a chili cook-off judging, and then a couple of people come walking up to me. We love what you guys do at night. And I mentioned yesterday at HEB, somebody walked up and they actually DVR on the CW 10:30 Sports Tonight, which is a condensed version of what we do every day. And Emery does a spectacular job of finding a way to get that fit into an hour. Gary, do you have that? This is a story, and I bring this up not for any reason of the story itself, which is sad, but this Dylan Lyons, he's a UCF grad. He's the news person that was trying to cover a story, was shot and killed. But I thought, again, we're a family, the Big 12, UCF, and wanted to put that up. I had somebody share that with me. And so our thoughts and prayers with Dylan Lyons, his family, and those who knew him along the way.
That's very, very tragic to be out there. Everything was tragic about that. And especially to be doing your job and get shot is really, really sad.
So when we come back, more to get to, including let's look ahead to the Big 12 weekend with Texas and Kansas racing towards a collision course. Can something happen in between all that? That's next. This is 365 Sports.
The future's bright. The time is now. Destiny is calling. Can you hear the sound?
This isn't just another song. This is the soundtrack of life at Baylor.
There's a spark in your heart and a fire that's in your eyes.
If you're ready to take a big step toward a bright future, tap the banner below to check out the music video for a glimpse of life at Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon wrap fillets to T-bone to bone-in ribeyes, cut specifically the way you want. They have Norwegian salmon fillets, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey and lunch meat, variety of cheese available, and several options of sausage links, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, ground beef, marinated beef, and chicken fajitas, and always large briskets available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and family tradition of the Bauer family continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday. A full-service butcher shop and bakery available. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
This is 365 Sports. Want more updates during the day? Follow 365 Sports YT on Twitter.
We brought up earlier in the hour the Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports, who does a hell of a job covering the Big 12 and college sports and has been a part of a lot of the stories involving realignment. On the Ray Anderson quotes, or at least comments, what he said to the ArizonaSports.com. Here are a couple of quotes. I'll let you read into what you hear here. Ray Anderson again talking to Bickley and Marotta. We're managing it by being patient and letting the process with our new commissioner take its course. It's been challenging. It's been frustrating. I don't think anybody can deny that. And so we've had to be patient because, very frankly, we're not in control. We certainly believe in the value of this market and certainly the value of ASU as an institution brings to the Pac-12 conference. Also, he mentioned that there's the quote here. Let's see. Certainly, we're all anxious to have something resolved here in the next couple of 3 weeks so we can take steps and get some of this speculation out of the air in regard to what the conferences may be thinking in terms of trying to pick up Pac-12 teams, if you will. And what we do in terms of adding institutions. Getting a media rights deal will clear the air for figuring out some of that stuff. But it really...
Okay, he did say this, like, this is what keeps the wheel spinning, though, on this. Yes. He said this. Assurances is a very strong word. Guarantees, assurances, can you promise? I can't speculate. So this is what he thinks is going to happen, and I think he... I don't think he has any reason not to think that, but still he throws that out there. It's like, like, okay, even you're coming on this radio show to say that, yeah, I expect everything to be done, but
and here's that quote. It may not be the projections originally contemplated. That's not breaking news, but will be solid enough financial situation to keep this conference together, and we will. So
that. Well, Ray Anderson's not the most popular necessarily. I mean, and just gazing at some of the responses, you know, like, this is the same guy that hired Herm Edwards, you know, like this, there's that kind of reaction to it, which is fair. I mean, it's true. But yeah, when I hear that financial part of that, that just makes me think that it's probably somewhere like we were talking about much earlier, where it just doesn't make enough sense for this thing to splinter any further, because they're making, I don't know if it'll come in higher than the Big 12. It doesn't sound like it, but I won't rule that out entirely, because you could always have like $5 more in your deal, you know, and technically have more. But it doesn't sound like it'll be low enough, even if it's not matching the Big 12, that it would make enough of a difference for everybody to move. But I'm far less worried about I'm not far less worried, but I'm equally as interested in not even the financial, or as much as I'm interested in the financial part of it, I'm equally as interested in the actual viewership part of it. He didn't say anything about that, to my knowledge, in any of those quotes that y'all just mentioned. He didn't say anything about the visibility piece of this and where they're actually going to land. So it remains to be seen if he's talking about an all-streaming deal, as has been speculated, or a majority streaming deal, and then, you know, some of it being shoved off to, or not shoved off, but, you know, played on like ESPN Plus or whatever. I mean, that's as crucial as the financial piece, because the financials are a little bit lower and the visibility is far lower. Well, then that's a double whammy. But if, you know, you're still getting some visibility that's comparable and you're only making like a couple million less, well, that's not all that different. And it would make no sense to pick up your bags and go make this massive move just for little discrepancies like that. So again, like much of the conversation surrounding this story, it's all going to depend on the final details.
Yep.
And what those actually look like. And I'll take Ray Anderson, you know, at his word for what he's saying, but I'm not, you know, sitting here going, wow, everything's good. We're wrong. Everything's perfect.
Kim Coulter on the chat room. Craig's right. Ray Anderson is hated by ASU alums over the Herm Edwards deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not sure about the hiring or the firing. I would think it's probably
the hiring.
Probably all of it. That's the way it all went down. But,
yeah.
I mean, he's done well with, you know, getting Kenny Dillingham there.
Wet blanket, not solid enough financially, but what about coverage? Again, kind of what you both have talked about.
That's it. Yeah. That's the thing that they're dealing with, is they may have to make this decision so they're solid enough financially, but that's a now deal. Like, they're making money now. They're going to hurt their exposure in the future. So it's all a delicate balance of what it's going to be. And again, everybody that's not locked in like the SEC and Big Ten are and have this machine rolling is going to have to plan out and be flexible. I think multiple things can be true at once. I think that absolutely Brett Yormark would love for some of those Pac-12 teams to become available. And absolutely, I'm sure he has a plan that if that does happen. But I also believe that, you know, for those other 4 teams to come apart, it's going to have to mean that everybody else has a place to go, because otherwise you're not going to really want to let them go, and you're going to try to balance that all out. So once there are other options, and the Big 12 will always have to deal with this too, but as long as there's a place for only a few of them to go, then it's probably not going to upset the apple cart that much, because the remaining 6 or so will be like, well, you know, we'll stick this together and figure something out. But the minute that it's, you know, 6-4 and not 4-6, then you've got a problem in the Pac-12, and that could be what happens down the line after this media deal, or everything could be fine, it could work out. We don't know, but right now it's just been really tough, and it's been bleak, because you look at all the options that can happen. The Pac-12 is not standing on the steadiest ground, and it's due in large part to the fact that Brett Yormark just, you know, looped, or, you know, like in a NASCAR race, he just went up on the bank and came up around him and won the race.
Yeah, he did. He came in. Yep.
He's right that they've had to sit back and kind of wait, but, you know, just kind of scanning his comments. I'll probably go listen to it if I can later to get even more, you know, kind of perspective on how he said everything. But, I mean, just 10 days ago, we had this conference given a vote of confidence, basically, and nothing has occurred really more than speculation, although that speculation has now lessened the pack of contenders that want to apparently show their product. So in the 10 days since the vote of confidence, the field has actually narrowed, and you've had a couple of people now talking about, you know, votes of confidence really, but having no idea when they're actually going to see anything substantial in terms of actual numbers and all that, because even Ray Anderson in the brief piece that I've skimmed here is not given any sort of a guarantee on when we're going to hear anything. You mentioned that assurances quote, assurances is a very strong word. Guarantees, assurances, can you promise? I can't speculate. That was in response to, could he see a media rights deal close in the next 2 or 3 weeks? So we could go another 2 or 3 weeks without hearing anything and then get on into potentially mid-March, which is what Kirk Schultz had originally kind of said to John Wilner about the possibility. He said his hope was for mid-March. So mid-March is in 3 weeks. Now you have Arizona State side saying, I can't assure you that anything will happen in the next 2 or 3 weeks, but it sure as hell seems from all that I'm saying here that in the next, by March 15th, we better see some kind of smoke coming out of the Vatican or whatever Pac-12 reference you want to make, because if not, then everybody's going to be kind of at a loss for words and really without a whole lot of reasons to keep kicking this can down the road other than complete panic at that point. So, I think you're looking at these next 3 weeks, get into mid-March. That's now 2 school presidents who are kind of vaguely commenting on where they are, and that vote of confidence just general as a conference 10 days ago. So, one thing is also very clear is not only do they still not have a firm date on this, and that could keep going for another 2 to 3 weeks at minimum, but they're trying their best to keep sounding positive, but also having to now acknowledge, we're nervous. Yes, there's anxiety. Yes, this is frazzling the nerves, and this hasn't been easy. So for anybody that wants to say, it's been overblown, this is all Big 12 propaganda, the Pac-12 officials themselves are saying, no, this has sucked, basically. This has not been fun, and we want to get this thing resolved because we know there's a ton of talk out there about us, but it remains to be seen. It's
an open book, and there, at least in negotiations, there's usually an end date, and everything, even the trade deadline or whatever, there's an end date or free agency or whatever, and eventually things get done, or even union, like in pro sports, whatever type of deadlines. All right, Big 12 men's basketball very quickly. We'll have a Baylor assistant coach, I believe, on tomorrow. We also have Chris Vanini from The Athletic on the story he wrote a couple of days ago about streaming and pro sports. We'll have that. So KU and Texas are both 11-4. K-State, Baylor have dropped the 2 back, and that's with Kansas State winning a couple in a row. Then Iowa State 8-7, TCU, Oklahoma State 7-8. Here comes Tech at 5-10, along with West Virginia. Then OU at 3-12. Saturday, Texas in Waco against Baylor at 1. OU plays at Iowa State, Kansas State at Oklahoma State, West Virginia at Kansas, and TCU plays at Texas Tech. Monday, you have the turnaround, and then, of course, the last week of the regular season is next week. When we come back, Paul Catalina, Top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance, and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com, or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 20 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:45. Or is it 5:55? Either way, it's the Top 5.
Top 5 college football game enhancement measures. Welcome back to 365 Sports. This is kind of all the way in. I got to credit Andy Staples for giving me one of these ideas here.
So you're plagiarizing.
I'm not plagiarizing if you credit.
All right. Okay.
You're citing. That's different.
He's good.
Yeah. But I thought, with all the clock enhancement things, I thought I would maybe put together a list of all the things they can do to not only speed up the game, but just make it better and more efficient. Number 5, this is Andy Staples, radios and helmets.
I thought they had those.
They do in the NFL. They don't in college football. And what Andy says is one of the reasons he's been given is that a lot of the helmet companies they deal with say it would void the warranty. But then on the other end of that, it's like, well, you're one of the biggest buyers, so I would think they would maybe work with you on that radio thing. And what does the NFL do? I mean, they don't void the warranty on theirs either. So just make that same kind of deal. But it would stop what I think is ridiculous of when you're at a college football game, you've got, 2 guys holding the sheet so that nobody can see it. And then you've got also, I think it would be awesome if I didn't have to see a picture of like SpongeBob, Lee Corso, building blocks in a dinosaur. That's the play call. I would rather just have them call it in to the guys, and that will also speed up. Nobody has to really go over the sideline and go, what are we doing? What are we doing? The offensive coordinator or the coach can just say, 352 Snapdragon on 7, whatever it is.
Snapdragon, isn't that San Diego State Stadium?
Exactly. Maybe that's why they invented the play. But, yeah, I think that would make things a lot more seamless, and the technology exists, and believe me, they can afford it.
Yeah, there's a big article that was written on this about last spring or so that gets into some of the particulars of why it hasn't happened and like some of the players involved. But they've cited a bunch of coaches that seem to be they cited at least a couple of coaches that were definitely in favor of the idea. One of them was David Shaw, who has experience in the NFL as well, and so he's like, yeah, he would be all in favor of it. For example, I don't know really why anybody wouldn't be in favor of it. And the whole like cost thing, like spare me with the cost thing. I mean, give me a break. I understand maybe your lowest of low-level schools might not be able to swing the price tag. Okay, that's understandable, but any like school in Division I, for the most part, you think would be able to come up with some situation with a company to where they could make it happen. And there's certainly plenty of schools who don't need to be talking about prices on anything and not being able to afford stuff. Like, give me a freaking break already on that point. But, I mean, just in general, whether that's an issue or not, I just think it'd be better and smoother for the game to have that communication and, as you said, not have to rely on giant play cards, although those can be kind of humorous sometimes, and not have to resort to a lower level of communication when there's a far better level of communication that's right there and available to you. I don't know why you wouldn't want to take advantage of that.
That the NFL has been using for a long time.
Yeah.
A very long time. And here's the thing, the cost is not 80 helmets. It's probably 10 when you think about
the
quarterbacks and the defensive players that would have it. So you're not talking about everybody. It's just a couple guys on each team that are designated that. Number 4, one entity overseeing officials. No more Big 12, SEC, Pac-12, Sun Belt, Conference USA officials. They are NCAA officials. They all work under the same thing. And as a matter of fact, you start mixing and matching a little bit more. So you don't have an SEC crew and an ACC crew and people who are calling. No. NCAA officials. You are all college football. You're all in the same umbrella. Your conference offices, you don't have to worry about, well, our conference office review thing is here, and this one is here, and this one is here. No. It's all in the same spot. It is run out of the same place, and there's uniformity in that.
So, okay. Go ahead, Craig.
Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know how you do this. I know what I get the idea, and I understand that. I just don't know if conferences want to give that up.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's stupid that they wouldn't. And because then you get situations where you have different officiating leaders who emphasize things differently.
It's a different league.
Yeah, but it's the same sport. It's the same thing. They're all headed
the AFC
toward
officials
the same
call it differently
goal.
than the NFC officials?
For the longest of times, baseball had the American League of umpires and they had the National
Different
League
rules.
umpires,
And
right? And they finally, after 150 years, have them all under one roof. It took 150 years to get that done.
Yeah, I don't know the logistics of this because I think a lot of it would be like geography based as well.
Regional travel, I get it.
They try to cut costs and things like that. So I don't know how much of a factor that plays into it. But yeah, I mean, to have a uniform sort of officiating group would not be worse for the game by any means. And I think that, ultimately it probably would be better because it always is that situation where you get your bowl game and you're like, what group of officials? Oh, it's the Pac-12 cheese. There's that whole thing. Or, oh, it's the Big 12 officials. Well, get ready for long video reviews 5 minutes into the game. There's those stereotypes, and there's stereotypes for a reason. But, yeah, I do feel like there's clearly a difference because, again, like I just pointed out, the reactions when you see where the crew's coming from, it's like, oh, well, they call the game a certain style of way, and that really shouldn't be drastically different, even if, when they're playing by mostly the same rules. I want to go back to the helmet thing, though, because I did look that back up, that story I referenced. And I guess one of the biggest barriers is actually the helmet companies. They're worried about liability.
Warranty,
Yep, the warranty thing that I just they are worried about a player because there's no unions and there's different types of helmets, and none of them are configured to have the speaker or whatever, that they're worried about a lawsuit. So that's basically the reason why we don't have that in college football.
Yeah, well, I think there's probably a way to work that out. Sounds
really lawsuits?
Yes. I mean, believe me, yes, there's a way to work that out because right now they're not trying to. So there's usually a way. Number 3, change the clock rules. I said, make those clock changes that they talked about. I don't like the incomplete pass rule. I think that one's a little bit silly. I think that would wind up just like that kickoff rule. But, on
the incomplete pass rule and the clock would continue to run, how many rallies or comebacks would be nullified?
Oh, I mean, tons. I mean, it would really put you behind the 8 ball because there's no benefit to,
throwing the ball.
You
have to do that to get, but yeah, I just thought about that the other day.
Okay, what's the benefit to a quarterback to throw the ball out of bounds?
Or spike it.
I mean, even on a play, he's not going to get sacked, just nobody's open and just need to live another day. There's no benefit to that. Now they've got to run all the way back down the field. I don't think that one will pass. I think that one's one of those poison pills that's in there so that the other things that make sense pass because the NCAA wants to do this. They want it, the conferences, they all want to change the clock rules and speed it up, but you have to have something in there. The coach will be like, whoa, okay, we'll do all this other stuff, but please don't take away that one. That's And because that's not a rule on any other level. The NFL still has that rule. Like, why would you do that? Like, they're making it work with their stuff. You can make it work with yours. So, and we talked about that a little earlier this week. 2, find a better overtime plan. I feel like the one that they came up with to shorten it to the 2-point conversions, I don't like it. I don't like it. I'd rather them just play a 10-minute quarter and call it a day before they went to that.
To have ties?
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, no, you would not have ties. Okay.
Yeah, but then and then maybe you could go to that at the end. I don't know, but I don't like the 2-point conversion shutout or showdown. I that's not fun for me. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but I do think that they need to find a better plan for overtime.
I don't know. I'm fine with it. I haven't really given it a whole lot of thought, honestly, because I just didn't, see it all. I feel like that all that often. But I guess when I did see it, it didn't really register with me that I, wasn't in favor of it versus the old way of doing things. I mean, I think just that A&M LSU game, just forced their hand of we got to do something about it. This is ridiculous. I mean, as classic of a game as that was, it was classic because it just lasted so dadgum long and because neither team could, finish the job. But yeah, I think it's prevented that type of a situation. I think that's one of those areas that will always be up for debate, and there will always be disagreements on the best way possible of doing things, so you're never going to make everyone happy. But I'm okay with it because I do think that at some point a game's got to end, and when you're talking about a league where these aren't a bunch of guys under CBAs and all that, and you keep dragging their butts back out there for a 5th overtime to win a Week 8 game, there's got to be a limit somewhere. So,
all right,
I'm in favor of that.
I'm good either way, really, to be honest with you. But should the stats during overtime count as individual or team?
I think team. You're just running, especially when you get to that third, you're just running 2-point conversions. Like, that's not even really a thing. You're running a play to get 2 points.
Like,
right?
for example, the LSU game with A&M went like 7 overtimes or whatever. So let's say somebody throws 7 touchdown passes in overtime. They threw 5 during. Records could be broken in what is a minimal field position that other records had been set when it was a 60-minute or whatever.
I kind of agree with that.
I'm not saying that shouldn't. That's just kind of a debate that I think could be a fun one to have.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And number 1, adopt XFL/NFL replay rules. I like the way they do it in the XFL. Said it before, not too long ago. It's absolutely wonderful and efficient. And the NFL replay situations, I think you can just apply those because, give the coaches a couple challenges, review those things that need to be reviewed. But, this whole thing of I think we might have spotted the ball a half-yard back. We better stop this 1st down and 3 gain and make sure it's 2nd and 7 and not 2nd and 6.
Big
Dear
12,
God.
I promise you, no stats, no facts, no analytics, nothing. The Big 12 does that more than any conference in America, and I do watch other conference games, other conferences, and they play.
Yeah, I think the Pac-12's problem is they review the things way too long and they just go and go
Here's
and go.
Here's another thing. Plays happen. Score touchdown. The replay camera's on the other end of the field, and they need to, that camera needs to go with the flow like a photographer would. But they'll score everything. Here comes a kicking team. Then they go to a replay when it seems like there could be a minute or 45 seconds and sometimes longer saved by someone making that decision sooner. Up in the booth, if we're going to wait for them, if they're going to have the ability to say, no, we need to look at that, do that quicker too.
Yeah, I don't know why there needs to be a guy squinting into a camera on the field when there's a room with no sunlight pouring in where somebody can just sit there and say, no, that wasn't a – I mean, what is this, like a production of something? Why does that guy need to go run over to the sideline, do this whole deal for 5 minutes to try and figure it out? There's nobody that can just go no, that wasn't a first down. Why are we making this so complicated?
Yeah.
I'm at home. I can look at it in 30 seconds, and I know what the call is. And 4.5 minutes later, they're still looking at this. What are you looking at? What are you possibly looking at? And if it's that hard to see, then maybe let's get them out of the sunlight on this camera they're squinting into under this, this hood apparatus. It's silly.
I'll tell you this. If you go to a game at AT&T Stadium, the officials are never more victims of their own mistakes than anywhere there because a coach can say hey, you got that wrong. You're like, no. And then you're like, oh, how about the biggest TV in the world,
if you
buddy?
can see it that quickly, then I don't know why they can't see it that quickly.
And now you're seeing college basketball go to the to the screen, and it's just
XFL deserves credit for some tweaking of the rules, and I think that those will probably be adopted, in some form or fashion by the NFL at some point, especially like being able to get the dialogue of what actually is being discussed and figure out why is it taking 3.5 minutes to, make this easy call. Well, you're at least given the opportunity to sort of understand what they're talking about. So I do like that, and that's another area where I don't know how long the league will last, but it seems like they'll leave some more marks on the game of football regardless.
All right, Paul, thank you very much. Emery Winter, Garrett Ross. We saw Jack for a split second or two. He'd been in Kansas trying to sabotage Baylor's defense, I guess. Tomorrow, Mac Rhodes, Chris Vanini, James Crepia. We'll have a Baylor men's basketball assistant, and there's someone else in between all that as well. Grayson Grundhafer as well. For Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak, thank you, all of you. Chat room, text line, sponsors. Good night, 365 Sports. I'm David Smoak.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.